December the 15th, 2025. Welcome back to the Two Witnesses Live. I'm your host, Watchful. And it's that time once again for your daily Torment Report. The reason why we call it the Daily Torment Report is because, if you're new here and you don't know this already, is because of the content that we cover on this show. Basically, we cover the Truth Social posts and the Twitter, now known as X.com posts of Elon Musk, two of the most controversial men in the world right now. You either love them or you hate them. But one thing is true. These two men torment the whole world. Let's get into this. Let's start with Donald Trump. Man, it was a heck of a weekend, wasn't it? Just, a lot of death and destruction. All, unnecessary, but it's a sign of the times. You know what I mean? It's a sign of things happening in the world. All right, let's look at Donald Trump here. We're going to start back on what we missed from Friday. We may have covered this post. Well, let's see. I had a very good conversation this morning with the Prime Minister of Thailand, Anointed Charnvirakul. And I butchered that name, Charnvirakul. And the Prime Minister of Cambodia, Hun Manet, concerning the very unfortunate reawakening of their long-running war. They have agreed to cease all shooting effective this evening and go back to the original peace accord made with me and them with the help of the great Prime Minister of Malaysia, Anwar Ibrahim. The roadside bomb that originally killed and wounded numerous Thai soldiers was an accident, but Thailand nevertheless retaliated very strongly. Both countries are ready for peace and continued trade with the United States of America. It is my honor to work with Anuten and Hoon in resolving what could have evolved into a major war between two otherwise wonderful and prosperous countries. I would also like to thank the Prime Minister of Malaysia, Anwar Ibrahim, for his assistance in this very important matter. And then, so that was the holiday thing. Yeah, so we read this on Friday, so that's old news, but good news that still potential for another peace resolution. So this was Saturday. Republicans in the Indiana State Senate who voted against a majority in the U.S. House of Representatives should be ashamed of themselves. Headed by a total loser named Rod Bray, every one of these people should be primaried, and I will be there to help. Indiana, which I won big, is the only state in the union to do this. Let's see. Are these... we got quite a few new posts here. I was appalled that Trump stooped to do to Reiner exactly what we criticized the left for doing to Charlie after he died. Oh, I didn't see that. I guess sometimes people use very poor judgment even with their words. Yeah, it was... So Rob Reiner died this weekend, presumably by his son, both Rob and his wife, which is a terrible tragedy. The thing about Rob Reiner and his wife is they had very severe TDS, Trump Derangement Syndrome. But that's no reason to behave like the left. Reiner did some pretty amazing things. He was a director. He's made some movies that you probably love and adore, or at least have heard that people love and adore, like The Princess Bride. And Misery, I think he did also. But I mean, he was a prolific director and made some very amazing movies. So there's no reason to celebrate his death. It's a tragedy. It's unfortunate, and I'm sad to hear that Trump. I don't know what Trump did. It sounds like maybe he did something he shouldn't have. See, this time he let his pride get in the better of him. I hope we don't suffer his fall with him. I do know he lacks a lot in discernment and judgment. Yeah. His lack of judgment shown in the bungling of Brown University murder. Both the FBI and the DOJ have some answering to do. Time to hold him accountable. Bondi and Cash both are very bad picks and don't have the necessary experience, he would have done better to put Don in charge of the FBI instead of Cash. Not sure what he was thinking there. Not sure about a lot of his decisions lately. I think he is surrounded by vipers again. Yeah, very likely. Probably the beasts that rise up from the bottomless pit that ultimately does him in. Because he's definitely subject to those around him. He you know one of his strengths can also be his weakness, in that listening to those around him. By the time, the biggest letdown for me was the way he talked about Reiner after he died. Oh man, now I'm not looking forward to hearing about that or seeing him talk about Reiner. We're all human. We make mistakes, and even if you are one of the anointed ones who stand beside the Lord of the whole earth, doesn't make you perfect. I think that's one of the things that I think religion. One of the biggest faults of religion and churches is painting this picture of perfection. People don't. People are so afraid of failure and so afraid of projecting impurity that they do what the Pharisees did, and that they make themselves clean on the outside and dirty on the inside. That's true about all of us. We're human. We're sinners. We're living in a cursed world, constantly bombarded by an adversary who attacks us. A lot. The adversary is like a roaring lion, walketh about seeking whom he may devour. That doesn't end until Christ returns, unfortunately, which is soon. So I don't care what party a person belongs to, nor how much TDS they have. No one deserves to be murdered by their own son. Agreed. Yeah, yeah. And then also there was the massacre at Bondi Beach in Australia, which that one hits home for me. I actually have a lot of friends in Australia. One of my first startup companies is based in Australia. And I actually have friends I haven't heard from since that massacre. So I am actually waiting to hear. I don't know if they've released a list yet of everybody who was killed and who was injured. But I'm waiting to find that list. If anybody has it, let me know. I've sent messages to everybody I know. I haven't heard from anyone. So I don't know if they have a lockdown on communication or what's going on, but that is definitely something near and dear to my heart. Also, one of the rabbis that I listen to, Yisrael Goldstein, his brother-in-law is the one who organized the event, that Chanukah celebration on the beach on Bondi Beach. I've been to Bondi Beach. Absolutely beautiful, serene place to just see the beautiful beach. What God has created, and bringing people together. It was just an amazing experience to be there on Bondi Beach. So what a terrible tragedy to happen there. But his brother was the one who organized it, and unfortunately was lost in the massacre. So that one hits. That one is very hard to accept and deal with. But I think there's more of this is going to come. This is a sign of the times. We see the restrainer's very likely been removed. I don't know. I've been thinking about this, to where it's just like, why the change? Like over the last 7 years, ultimately I believe it's what Zechariah 5 talks about, to where it's the curse that goes throughout the whole land. It goes into the homes of the thieves and perjurers and burns them to the ground. If indeed that is the case, it's has the restrainer been removed? Is that why we're seeing people change in the way that they're changing? Whatever protection was keeping people sane has now been removed. I'm not sure what it is, but it seems to be a sign of the times. All of this is written about in the book of Revelation, written about in the Bible. I was just writing an email to somebody to see if they want to, come on the show or have me on their show. They're a YouTuber. If anything comes of it, I'll let you know. But to see if they want to do a show to where we talk about these things. But there's a lot of data that indicates that we're in the end times, and that the events that have happened are end times. Oh, I realized something new today. When the timeline. So if we come in here to the timeline, seal number 7 here. I've been, for some reason. So seal number 6, I believe, is when the Earth, the poles, the magnetic poles shift, because it rolls up like the sky rolls up like a scroll, and the islands and mountains are moved out of their place, and the stars fall like the stars fall like fire to the earth. So there's a couple of things that indicate that seal number 5 is probably a magnetic pole shift. But seal number 7 is when the bowls and the trumpet judgments start. I've been saying that I think seal number 6 is the start of God's wrath. It could be, but it could also be God's wrath could also start in seal number 7. And the reason I bring this up is I've been trying to figure out the 1,260 days for when the two witnesses are done, and they're dead on the street for 3.5 days. And if seal number 6 was God's wrath, I would expect them to be killed before or shortly after that time, and it seems like it's too soon, which means that seal number 7 is probably more likely the candidate. So I think, so what it looks like is so seal number 7 is when the bowls and the judgments happen. Matter of fact, why don't we read this? We have a little extra time today because Trump didn't post very much over the weekend. Been kind of busy. Where are we? Let's go to Revelation 6. Actually, so the 6th seal, I look when he opened the 6th. Oh, here, I'm not sharing the screen anymore. Let me change over there. And we can do this guy. All right, and I looked when he opened the 6th seal, and behold, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became like blood, which it's interesting. I want to find out if we can do a simulation on this. This could be indicative right here of the magnetic pole shift. And the reason I say that is because for the sun to become as black as sackcloth, that either is a total solar eclipse where the moon goes in front of the sun and completely blocks it out. It could be like some a massive amount of ashes in the atmosphere, like say volcanoes erupt. I don't think that's what it is, because we've seen a lot of volcanic activity to where it put a massive amount of ashes in the air and it still didn't block out the sun. So I'm not sure that that's what that one is. But the fact that there's a total solar eclipse and a blood moon, I don't think these can happen on the same day, because blood moons tend to happen at the middle of the month. And don't quote me on this, but I'm just giving you an idea of the separation between an eclipse and a blood moon. Is one of them tends to happen at the beginning of the month, and one of the other ones happens in the middle of the month. What I'm wondering is if this is not indicative of the Earth shifting to where when an eclipse happens, the Earth rotates, and when it finally stops rotate, when it's finally settled into its new position, if there's not a blood moon, something like that, you get the idea. I'm wondering, and I'd like to do a simulation on this to see if I can't prove out this theory. Let's see. And the stars of the heaven fell to earth as a fig tree drops its late figs when it is shaken by a mighty wind. Then the sky receded as a scroll when it is rolled up. Ben Davidson has said that when the pole shift happens, if you're looking at the stars, you'll see them just moving as if you were just kind of rolling them up. And every mountain and island was moved out of its place, and the kings of the earth, the great men, the rich men, the commanders, the mighty men, every slave and every free man, hid themselves in the caves and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and the rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb, for the great day of his wrath has come. Who is able to stand it? Okay, so that's where I get the wrath starting. So now I remember. Now I remember that this is why I say seal number 6 is the start of God's wrath. Right now, rich men are building bunkers. So they know something that they're not making publicly available. And a lot of the information about the pole shift is starting to become more mainstream, and people are starting to worry about that. And you can see that as evidenced by Tim Pool. He talks about this probably once a week now, to where he's talking about the pole shift, the weakening shields. He's had Ben Davidson on his show several times. But this is the thing that I've been kind of missing. So this is what happens between seal and 6 and 7. This is what I've been missing is seal 7 prelude to the 7 trumpets. When he opened the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven for about a half hour. For some reason, I was stopping there in my mind. and I was thinking that all this other stuff happened between 6 seal and 7. But that's not the case. And I saw the 7 angels who stand before God, and to them were given 7 trumpets. Then another angel, having a golden censer, came and stood at the altar, and he was given much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all the saints upon the golden altar, which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense with the prayers of the saints ascended before God from the angel's hand. Then the angel took the censer, filled it with fire from the altar, threw it to the earth, and there were noises, thunderings, lightnings, and an earthquake, so that the 7 angels who had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound. And then you get these trumpets. So you get the vegetation is struck, you get the seas which are struck, the waters are struck, the heavens are struck, the locust from the bottomless pit. So there's a lot of bad stuff that happens in seal number 7. One thing we've learned about the seals is they mark periods of time. Like COVID. COVID lasted several years. Like the seal number 4 lasted several years. Technically, I think we're still in seal number 4. It has lasted since October of 2023. So I imagine these things aren't all going to hit at one time. I imagine that there will be time between when that seal opens and when the 2 witnesses are finally when the beast from the bottomless pit rises up and it wins over them, and they're dead in the street for 3.5 days. And the whole world rejoices over them. Until this year, until Charlie Kirk, was kind of hard to imagine. But now it's more and more easier to imagine that something that people could rejoice at the death of anyone. I mean, like, it's terrible about Donald Trump rejoicing. I don't know what he did. Maybe he posted about it. Well, you'll have to show me, Fury, where it was that Trump blew it with Rob Reiner. But I do have a video prepared that I can show you an example. So this I was going to share after the show, but we might as well show it here now. This here shows an example of what the rejoicing and gift giving actually looks like.
What sort of sick, demented, evil, twisted person goes out and celebrates the mass slaughter of innocent people?
What is considered enough bloodshed for the...
So this is the Rabbi Yisroel Goldstein I was telling you about. It was his brother-in-law who organized the Hanukkah event on Bondi Beach in Australia, and the one who was unfortunately critically wounded and died as a result of that attack. He also himself was in a mass terror attack or a mass attack on a temple in 2019. Matter of fact, he lost a couple of his fingers as a result of that attack. So interesting life these guys live, eh?
The world to finally wake up and realize that we have a real war at hand. The jihad, radical Muslim war, that we cannot be blindfolded and keep our heads in the sand anymore. Let's watch this presentation by Mrs. Goldie.
How many more innocent people need to be slaughtered on the altar of political correctness and multiculturalism and diversity before the West wakes up and realizes that we have an Islamic jihad problem? When a bunch of savage Islamic jihadis go out into your streets in Western countries and call for jihad, what do you think that means? Or how about when they go out in the streets waving their terrorist flags and chanting globalize the intifada? What do you think that means exactly? Do you think that's them going around handing out brochures peacefully and saying, oh, personal struggle, personal oppression? Are we just going to collectively forget what happened 2 years ago? Less than 24 hours after Islamic terrorists slaughtered over 1,200 Israelis, you had the supporters of those savage Islamic terrorists in Gaza going out into streets in Western countries, and they were celebrating.
This is what I wanted you guys to see.
Israel had not yet retaliated, by the way. People were still reeling from getting the news of the most horrific genocidal massacre of Jewish people since the Holocaust, while Jews in Israel and around the world were still reeling from the fact that they had just witnessed the most severe attack against them since the Holocaust. You had a bunch of Islamic savages going out in the streets yelling, Allahu Akbar. In fact, you know what they were doing in Australia? They were yelling, gas the Jews, F the Jews, waving their terrorist flags, and celebrating the slaughter of innocent people. I want you to watch this video, and then you tell me if this looks like the behavior of rational, sane, normal people.
So that's in Melbourne, Australia. So this was after that massacre. This is what we're seeing more and more of. It's very indicative of, so if we come over here and we go to Revelation 11, let's see right here. Then those from the peoples, tribes, tongues, and nations will see their dead bodies 3.5 days and not allow their dead bodies to be put into graves. And those who dwell on the earth will rejoice over them, make merry, and send gifts to one another, because these two prophets tormented those who dwell on the earth. So, it used to be hard to imagine what that might look like. Could you imagine living in Australia, having gone through that mass attack, and this kind of demonstration happens just up the road? This is Melbourne, Australia. I can tell by the buildings in the background. This looks like Melbourne, Australia, which is very close to Bondi Beach. So Australia has very, very strict gun laws. Supposedly, from what I've heard from the reports, there was a father and son who did the attack, and the father was a registered gun owner, and he had 6 guns. So it's not impossible to get guns in Australia. Matter of fact, when I would visit, there were stores that actually sold rifles. But it's just very difficult to get the license. Apparently, he had done what was needed in order to get the license. But it's a terrible tragedy. I mean, this is indicative of why guns are important. What was interesting is, as I understand it, there were 4 police officers at the festival who who took cover and did not return fire. I don't know the full details, so I don't want to paint them in a negative light. But from all appearances, it seems as though they cowered. If that had happened in America, where there was somebody who was armed, I guarantee you somebody would be returning fire. You don't normally hear about those in the mainstream media because they're uneventful. When a good guy takes out a good guy with a gun takes out a bad guy with a gun, it tends to not get a lot of publicity. Typically, you only hear about the mass attacks that happened where guns are not allowed, such as Brown University, which was another attack that happened this weekend, to where there was a targeted attack on a girl who was the leader of the Republican group on campus. Another terrible tragedy that happened over the weekend. But in heavily armed areas, I guarantee you, something like this would not go over the same way in the area where I live because everybody here is armed. Yeah, somebody starts shooting, you're gonna in an area that's heavily armed. That's not gonna last very long. And it's sad how the politicians in Australia already and on social media are already turning this into a gun issue. It is a gun issue. They need more guns. However, with this starting in an area that is heavily controlled over the firearms, it still seems to be escalating globally, and it seems like it's only a matter of time before it does actually come to America. It would not surprise me if we don't have some kind of an Aloxa Flood 2.0 in February when seal number 5 is looks to be like it's going to open.
Did you see that? These people are showing you exactly who they are and what they want. What sort of sick, demented, evil, twisted person goes out and celebrates the mass slaughter of innocent people? Keep in mind, this was on October 8th, okay? Israel had not even retaliated yet. In fact, it took 3 weeks for Israel to retaliate. And yet these people are out there celebrating the mass slaughter of innocent Jews. And did you hear what they're saying? Takbir, Allahu Akbar. Like, how sick and twisted and evil do you have to be that when you hear of the mass murder of innocent people, you go out and you start yelling Allahu Akbar? Is this the kind of society that you want to live in, where we have to tolerate Islamic terrorism and jihad in the name of political correctness, freedom of speech, and multiculturalism and diversity? I don't know about you, but I'm starting to get really, really sick of this nonsense.
Yeah, you and me both. Yeah, I'm not very fast at reading my email. That particular email I only read about 3 times a week. So if you did send me something, I will respond. I tend to not do any work on Friday night and Saturday for the Sabbath. I tend to reserve that for family and God. On Sunday, I was busy working on a video that I thought I was going to be able to release on Sunday, but production just takes. It's so much faster to just come on and do a live video than to do a produced video when you're doing it by yourself. So I will get to your email and I'll read it and respond. Sorry if it's been delayed. What else? It's interesting. One thing that I want to make sure that people understand, because a lot of the end time events revolve around, seem to have the appearance to involve Islam and Muslim terrorism and Muslim jihad. I was having a conversation with Grok this weekend about, let's see, so that was where I was asking about the desolation. When did Islam form? Islam formed in the early 7th century CE in the Arabian Peninsula, specifically in Mecca. Historian and scholars widely recognize its origins through prophetic mission of Muhammad. So it formed in about 570 CE, Muhammad born in Mecca. And I said, it seems like Islam serves the same God of Israel. Is this true? And it says, yes. From the Islamic perspective, Muslims worship the same God as the Jews. the God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and the prophets of Israel, known as Yahweh or Hashem in Judaism, and Allah in Islam. Islam explicitly identifies Allah as the God who revealed the Torah to Moses and spoke to the Israelite prophets. The Quran repeatedly affirms this continuity. It refers to Allah as the God of Abraham, Ibrahim, Moses, Musa, and the children of Israel. Verses like Quran 2:136 state, "We believe in Allah and what has been revealed to us and what was revealed to Abraham, Ishmael, Isaac, and Jacob, and the tribes, and what was given to Moses and Jesus." Allah is presented as the creator who chose the Israelites, gave them the Torah, and guided them directly, linking to the biblical God of Israel. Muslims view Islam as the final restoration of the original monotheistic faith of Abraham, which they believe was practiced by the prophets of Israel before later distortions. And then I said, why do Muslims kill Jews? And it said, no, Muslims as a whole do not kill Jews, and Islam does not mandate or encourage the killing of Jews as a religious obligation. The vast majority of the world's 1.8 billion Muslims live peacefully alongside Jewish communities. And this is true. There's a lot of Muslims who live in Israel and Jerusalem, even during the attacks, like the Hamas attack. In historical periods of coexistence, medieval Spain, Ottoman Empire, demonstrate mutual tolerance and cooperation. Violence between some Muslim and Jews, when it occurs, is overwhelmingly driven by political, territorial, and nationalist conflicts, primarily the Israeli-Palestinian dispute, rather than inherent religious doctrine. Generalizing this to Muslims kills Jews is inaccurate and overlooks the complexity. So that's what I wanted to show you about that. Is it's actually a complex topic that's not just Islam or Muslims against Jews. I think it's all too easy to paint Islam in a negative light when it seems as though their religions and some sects are compatible. Now, I'm not an expert on Islam, but because I bring it up that a lot of the end time events seem to resolve around Islam and Muslims, I thought it was worth bringing that up to provide a counterbalance that it's not the whole 1.8 billion who want Islamic jihad. All right, let's get back to Trump's post. That was quite the the sidebar. Was there anything else you guys wanted me to answer before we continue? Let's see. The West. Yeah. So I did actually read that post, Fury. We'll get to it. We'll get to it here, and I'll comment on it when we get there. He definitely could have worded it much better. Let's see. He doesn't get around. See, I don't understand the complexity of the relationships of Islam with not. I don't. Yeah, admittedly, I don't understand the complexities. That's why I was asking Grok about it. But I mean, I really should study it more, considering, I'm publicly visible and I'm making statements about the end times in regards to Islamic practices. It's fairly new to me. I believe it was Joel. When Christopher and I were doing the show together, we had a guest on the show, was a friend of Christopher. His name was Joel. He was the one who actually introduced me to the idea that the gift giving and the celebration when killing somebody was an Islamic practice. I was completely unaware of that. All right, let's get back to these. Let's get back to Trump's timeline so we can keep heading in a forward direction towards the Torment report here. Republicans in the Indiana State Senate who vote. Oh, we already read that. Let's see, 4 times as many illegals in New York prisons than their share of population. Wow, the great Arthur Laffer, Ronald Reagan's economic whiz, and highly respected by all, said in a speech last night that Donald Trump is the greatest president in history, bar none. Such an honor coming from a man of such wisdom. Also, he said that tariffs are working in a big way. Our country is rich and admired again. I do get it's funny when he talks like this that he's kind of highlighting himself as a great president and his works. It is very egotistical. I get why people think he's the Antichrist or Little Horn. More specifically, the Little Horn is what they're thinking because it is said that he speaks great things, which seems as though it's egotistical. The issue that I have is that currently Donald Trump does one of when you look at the attributes of the little horn, they don't match Donald Trump. It's just in that one little tiny category to where the little horn seems to be egotistical, and Donald Trump also seems to be egotistical. I can't imagine you get to where you are, and especially when Donald Trump is so used to winning, and he does win a lot, as evidenced by the life that he's lived, the riches that he's acquired, and what appears to be an anointing from God. You don't get like that without having a little bit of pride and ego. And it would seem as though it's kept within balance because his fruit overall is good. So, but I do get why people try to associate him with the little horn, but it's really just on that one attribute. I have yet to see Donald Trump exhibit the other attributes of the little horn, and that's why I won't make that connection myself until those things happen, until he starts persecuting the saints, until he starts blaspheming God, things like that. All right, let's move on. We mourn the loss of 3 great American patriots in Syria, 2 soldiers and 1 civilian interpreter. Likewise, we pray for the 3 injured soldiers it has just been confirmed are doing well. This was an ISIS attack against the U.S. in Syria in a very dangerous part of Syria that is not fully controlled by them. The president of Syria, Ahmed al-Sharaa, is extremely angry and disturbed by this attack. There will be a very serious retaliation. Thank you for your attention to this matter, Donald J. Trump. So this was, when did he post this? This was December 13th. So this was 2 days ago. So it's just self-promotion. You can't get to president without it. Yeah, and that's probably why I would never be a good president. I'm very bad at self-promotion. I don't even like to, honestly don't even like being on YouTube. This is me confronting my fears and the things I don't like. I would much rather do a faceless channel and much rather just small groups of people. But, this is, I know we're in the end times and nobody else is. There's things that I believe that need to be shared that nobody else is covering, such as Donald Trump and Elon Musk. I don't pretend to think that I'm the only person sharing truth. Obviously, that's not true. But this is undercovered, and by necessary, somebody needs to say it. So here I am. Sometimes I wish I was a little bit more egotistical and prideful, like Donald Trump. We may have a bigger channel as a result of it, getting more of the message out. It boggles my mind that more people don't see things this way, right? The evidence is all there. All the signs of the end times are there. You would think that there would be dedicated groups, working groups, even in churches that were dedicated to observing these things and identifying them, that were that were tracking the prophecies and their fulfillments, and that they would be filling websites and databases and writing books and doing teachings on it. But there seems to be a serious lack of that, at least from my perspective. I don't know. There's like 30 billion videos released every single day. It's not like I get to see. It's not like I'm exposed to every one of them. Maybe there are more out there, but I do search quite regularly for people sharing this kind of content. And I'm lucky if I find one person who agrees with me on the seals. There is one guy, Rick. I can't remember his last name, but he basically agrees with me on seal number 2. but disagrees with me on the other seals. So it seems to go that way. You know what I mean? And it could be indicative that I'm wrong. I don't think we'll really know who got everything right, or if anybody got everything right until Christ comes back, or some of these predictions that the data is indicating actually happens. Like if something actually happens on February 17th, 2026, then I'll at least know we're on the right track. So that will add legitimacy to the way that we're going about observing and processing this data. Anyway, moving on. Man, I'm getting distracted today. Let's see. Getting ready to land at Fort McHenry for my short drive to the Army-Navy game. Everyone is asking who I am supporting, Army or Navy. My answer is you must be joking if you think I'm going to give you an answer. President Donald J. Trump. The Great Wall of Presidents. The West Wing. The new mirror and bronze lettering at the door to the West Wing along Presidential Walk of Fame. Cool. Let's see, that's a double post. Let's see, I have been briefed on the shooting that took place at Brown University in Rhode Island. The FBI is on scene. The suspect is in custody. God bless the victims and the families of the victims. That's a tragedy. The Brown University police reversed their previous statement. The suspect is not in custody. I believe that's still true. Last I checked, which was about an hour before the show, they still had not had the suspect in custody. No idea what that is. It's not an ad, because you'll notice I have ads. Oh, it could be an ad. I don't have ads turned off on True Social. It's just X that I have ads turned off. Picture of the president looking at two Christmas trees. It looks AI generated. I don't know what that is. Trump's election win filled Hamas with fear. Hostage held like slave for 505-day recounts. Let's see. In the lobby of our beautiful White House, fight, fight, fight. That was a momentous day. I believe that was the day when Elon really got motivated to get behind Donald Trump. And according to Jonathan Cahn, that was the day that Trump was anointed as God's man, according to Levitical law. I'll find that video and put it in the description if you haven't seen that. But Jonathan Cahn did a whole video on Trump's anointing from this, because apparently when they're anointed, there's a little bit of blood on the ear, shoes are taken off, stuff like that. This is the Trump Gold Card, which is a legitimate way to come into the United States, but costs like $1 million. All right, what is this?
In economic news, the September jobs report showed the American economy remains strong, with 119,000 new jobs added, more than double expectations. These gains came after the summer passage of President Trump's historic tax cuts and multiple big trade deals with countries around the world. In particular, construction jobs surged by 19,000 in September, the largest monthly gain in a year. Nearly all of this solid monthly job growth came from the private sector and went to Americans rather than foreign-born workers, the opposite of what we saw under the previous administration. Inflation also remains under control, and wages are up by 3.8% over the year for American workers because of President Trump's pro-growth policies. In fact, real wages are on pace to increase roughly $1,200 for the average worker this year under President Trump. This is a complete reversal of the failed Biden era, when we saw inflation skyrocket to 9%, causing private sector workers to see their wages decline by approximately $3,000. We know that Americans are still hurting from the 4-decade high inflation caused by Joe Biden and the Democrats. But President Trump is making significant progress to fix this, and he will not stop working until he solves it. As the president recently stated, he is never satisfied.
Well, the economy's on the up and up. Can't wait to start feeling that. I know personally, still feeling the pain of the Biden administration. So, Fury, you're saying there are many more than I realize. However, many are are not pointing out the same things in the same way you do. So who says similar things as me? Is there anybody there who's picked up on Donald Trump and Elon Musk as the two witnesses? Great, I'm going to eat another bug. Oop. There's another bug in here. Product of living on a farm. You get bugs, even in the winter. Yeah. So one thing that surprises me is that I don't see people covering the timeline in the same way that I do. That I don't see anybody else really talking about Donald Trump and Elon Musk as the two witnesses, and the seals. I see a lot of people talking about the seals, but it seems like they're so far off because they're working from the assumptions that have been made for the last 100 years or longer about what the end times were going to be like and how to identify the end times. Primarily, it almost seems as though the primary indicator that many most, I would say, who study eschatology are waiting for this Antichrist figure to come onto the scene. And because they're waiting for this Antichrist figure, they don't think that we've gone through the Great Tribulation. They don't think that we're, gone through the labor pains, that we haven't, that we're not. This bug really wants to be eaten. That we're, sorry. Welcome to the live show. You get to see what happens on the stage. Yeah, it seems as though what's going to happen is when they're going to be caught off guard. It points to why Jesus said that if you do not watch, I will come upon you like a thief. Because if they're thinking, which the majority don't think the first seal has been opened. There are definitely some who think the first seal has been open. Christian Widner has been on the show. He thinks that the first seal has been opened. Steve from Apocalypse Tech, he thinks we're further along in the timeline. So there's definitely people who are looking at the timeline, but by and large, it seems like most people think that we're like close, but not there yet. You know what I mean? Oh, okay. No one else has, but End Time Ministers has covered it since I was a kid. My dad knew those ministers. There were a lot of other ministers who made rounds through various churches. They use the Bible, though. No data like you do. Oh, well, I like being unique. Thanks. I appreciate that. I'm really surprised. One of the reasons I started YouTube is because I thought it would bring other, researchers to want to talk about and research these things. I've been pretty much relatively alone in studying these things. I'm an open book. I would love for people to send me their research and their data to consider. But by and large, what I get is stuff that I've seen. It's nothing new. It's people assume that I'm stupid or that I haven't studied the scripture because I'm not saying the same things as them. Which maybe that's a failure on my part, failing to communicate that I've looked at that information and dismissed it in favor of greater information that makes more sense, because it's based on signs in the sky, signs in the heavens, and events, and just stuff that's like factual. When in the face of facts, it tends to dispute the assumptions. So yeah, but I'm relatively disappointed. But I can totally see why people will be caught off guard, is because, and I know for a fact, because I see it in the statistics, that people come to the channel and bounce relatively quickly because I'm not saying things that they want to hear. And this is one of the issues that Christopher and I had an issue with, which because I don't know where he's at now. I haven't checked in on him, but he starkly disagrees with me on Donald Trump and Elon Musk being the two witnesses. I don't know if he's changed his position on that. But yeah, when you come to a channel and you hear somebody who, the way that I'm broadcasting again, so I was broadcasting horizontal and vertical for YouTube Shorts. I made a tweak to the vertical so that hopefully, because the overall feedback was people who didn't like getting the vertical view. They prefer this view better. I made a change that hopefully should keep the vertical view only in YouTube Shorts, so you should get this view by standard now. Let me know. Anyway, we should get back to the Trump's posts. Oh, I'm correlating data and scripture, something they don't know. Probably because I'm an engineer. It's interesting because a lot of the people that are similar to me are engineers. Like Christian Widner, he's an engineer. Yeah. So and people who have an engineering mind, that is something that I am realizing is that if you don't think like an engineer, it's harder to grasp information presented by an engineer. So that's something I need to get better at, and that's what I was saying is if you guys have any feedback or advice on how I can present this in a way or something I can do with a channel that will help reach people that are not that are are not compatible with the way I'm presenting information, I'm all ears. Something I am working on is I'm going to probably start doing clips. I've just been working on trying to automate it so it doesn't take an hour per clip, because that's typically how long it takes to make a good clip. I'm working on being able to generate clips after every show that will do like 5 to 15 minute clips of information, or even like 30-second shorts of information, in order to get kind of like, key points from the show to interest people to maybe make it past the daily torment report with Donald Trump and Elon Musk. All right. Anyway, let's get back to the timeline. Let's see. We know that Americans are still hurting from. Oh, we already read that. President Trump has turned the Biden depression into the new golden age. Incredible. Joe Biden's presidency was the biggest scam in U.S. history. Okie doke. This was a retweet. So that was so Trump retruthed that from Women for Trump. Wow, that was from November. This one's from November 25th too. President Trump is trying his damnedest to clean this country. The Democrats are trying their damnedest to stop him. Indeed. Let's see. Press Secretary Levitt, thank you for being awesome in every way. You are incredible. You're incredibly well-versed and professional in keeping Americans informed. Thank you. That was from Laguna Beach, replying to Press Secretary, and Trump retruthed that. Oh, it's nice of him. Bringing attention to people who deserve extra praise. Let's see. Take time to fix 4 years of it takes time to fix 4 years of destruction. Yeah, and unfortunately, by the time, this is what I worry about. By the time that he actually does repair the destruction, we're going to have, it looks like we're going to go into the magnetic pole shift, which what kind of chaos is that going to bring to the entire earth? That's going to be a massive change. That's going to be a massive shift. Like, do you realize? Let's come back over here. So this is seal number 5, opening on February 17th, 2026. Because this deals with the death of the saints, I'm inclined to think, there's that bug again. It's funny, it only bugs me when I'm doing the show. It's like I could be in my office all day long. I can be in the studio here all day long. The bugs won't come anywhere near me. As soon as I start doing the show, it's probably because I'm talking more often and they're probably attracted to like the carbon monoxide or dioxide or whatever it is. But they really want to come over here and bug me. I need to get a bug zapper in here. So February 17th, 2026 is very likely. I'm expecting it to be violence of some kind, or continued violence, like more of what we're seeing with what happened in Australia, what happened at Brown University. All signs seem to indicate that is going to escalate, which is funny because you would think that I imagine people who aren't aware of the other information might think that is seal number 4 if something happens in America like that. But I don't know what it is. I'm just guessing that based on what's written about seal number 5, that will very likely be some kind of an escalation of violence, to where, because it talks about waiting for the saints who are going to be killed as they are. But then after that, when you're thinking about these things, it makes so much sense when it talks about those who overcome. If you survive that, so what we can take away from this is this would by February, you should have all of your preps topped up. So, and we're actually going to do this ourselves. We're going to go through and get rid of everything that's expired. So, canned food, we're probably going to keep things that are expired, because the only thing that really happens in canned food is texture. And really old canned food, texture changes. But by and large, canned food tends to have a much longer shelf life than what the expiration date has on it. Canned food we'll probably leave alone. Bagged beans and legumes are probably fine. But flour, probably, the flour, and let's see, the salt and sugar is probably fine. Yeah, we'll probably go through all of our flour. We'll probably go through in the next 2 months and make bread every day, just to go through all of our flour so that we can refresh the flour. Because my wife, we love fresh baked bread on the farm. There's nothing like fresh baked bread. But we tend to go through like a loaf every 4 or 5 days. So we probably will bump that up to go through the flour faster. But yeah, we're going to go through and refresh everything. Find anything that's expired that we should get rid of, and probably go donate it to the food place. We'll probably go through and update our to-go box. So we have a box in our truck that has one of those buckets. You can get them at like Costco or Sam's Club. They've got like 50 meals in them, but it's like macaroni, cheese, and oats, and coffee, and hot chocolate. So we've got one of those in a bucket in our truck, with a little heater and a coffee maker and a couple other things, blankets, water, the bare essentials. So we'll go through and make sure that that's all topped up and taken care of. But by February 17th, probably have all your preps double checked and in order, just in case there's something that makes it hard to get to the store. And then definitely by August, actually. Because if August the 26th is when the Earth rotates, can you imagine the chaos that's going to cause on the planet? Especially if the water moves around like the predictions say that it might. Now, I will say that this date is based on the pattern alone. I received no special instructions, no special revelation. I haven't had an angel visit me and tell me that anything is happening on these days. This is purely from reading the scripture, observing what's happened, and noticing that there are mirror images, chiastic structures in the scripture, and inferring that this might happen because the symmetry here is perfect. Like the day count between these events is perfect. It matches perfectly. So there is a higher than usual chance that something could happen on this day. Now, Ben Davidson, the one who is the kind of the lead on the pole shift, at least on YouTube, he doesn't expect the Earth to rotate until like 2030. Like, that's his early time. He has come out and said that it could happen at any time, but he puts the chance of it happening at like 2%, 5%, pretty low. However, things are changing very quickly. Like, the shields around the Earth are getting weaker every single day. So, yeah. I don't know what to recommend on this. Like, is if it, he moved. Ben Davidson moved to Colorado because of what he learned about the magnetic pole shift. I'm reluctant to recommend the same thing. I don't want to cause like a fear or a panic. I believe that if you're listening to God, God will work on your heart what it is that you should do and where you should be. And if you're comfortable and confident in where you are, it's probably because God wants you there. But my biggest recommendation for 2026 is master your prep plan. Master having at least 3 months of food and preparations on hand so that you could handle another lockdown, a lockdown of some kind. I'm not saying there's going to be any kind of a lockdown, but 2026 is going to be crazy. That's what I'm saying. 2026 looks like it's going to be a crazy year. Be prepared. All right. So back to the time, takes time to fix the 4 years of destruction. Yeah, and unfortunately, I think there's going to be a lot more curveballs coming. 2020 was a dumpster fire. All right, let's see. The Biden-Harris regime spent 4 years carpet bombing American consumers with inflation. Now, in a big lie layup ahead of the midterms, Democrats and their left media publicists are blame shifting the affordability issue to Trump. That's from Mark Alexander. Yeah, very true. I trust my president. I do too. I have no reason not to. He could just be a little more tactful at times. They don't really know. Let's see. When the is anybody having problems with the sound? Okay. When the shift happens, the new America map shows where I live all underwater. They say something somewhere in Colorado is the only place to be from the little bit I heard. It's not just Colorado. It's pretty much the West Coast. There's a lot of mountains on the West Coast. I think they're assuming that will probably keep the water back. Maybe I'm not entirely sure. I will say that where we are, I believe that God put us here specifically because literally the way we got onto this property, our farm, was legit a miracle. Like one day it's one of those still small voice things to where one day I was just like, we need to get a house. I'd never had any interest in getting a house or anything, buy a house. But one day I just like, well, we need to get a house. So we started the process of getting a house and we found tons and tons of like smaller little perfect homes that we thought would be great. And like it was roadblock after roadblock until we got to the big one that was a farm that would have been perfect that we thought that we'd never afford in a million years. And it just we literally closed within like 3 days. So it was like, oh, that was meant to be. So I believe that we're probably where God wants us. And maybe if you're hearing this and it's something that you've been thinking about, maybe this is the confirmation that you need. If you've been thinking that maybe you should move, maybe you should maybe in August you should go visit, family in Colorado or, Utah or somewhere on the West Coast. It's things to keep in mind. I think we'll know more in February. If something does actually happen in the middle of February, that will be very indicative that we should be worried about August. You know what I mean? So that might be the trigger to where if, something does happen in February that really fits the description of seal number 5, that might be when people go, okay, we need to get very serious because we've got about 6 months to prepare for seal number 6 to open. Yeah. Let's see. They don't really know what will happen with the shift or if we will be underwater. It might not even happen fast. If it does, a bunch of us will go home. Let's see. Are you still planning on moving to Colorado near Ben? No, no, Christopher was the one who was planning to move to Colorado near Ben, not me. I don't know what his plan is. If it doesn't, it will continue to shift the way it has been shifting and will be finished by 2050, and the water will adjust with it. I've been wondering if Ben is like a Noah figure and hollering for everybody to get to safety where the maps show. Huh, it's a really good point. It could be. He's definitely building a kind of ark up there. He's got the Observer's Ranch with homes and land and everything. Yeah. Yeah, I have a feeling that we're where we need to be just because it was miraculous. The funny, yeah. Let's get back to the timeline before I get too distracted. I will go on forever. Let's see. Move my camera back over there. Let's see. Do not let corrupt and incompetent Democrats blame Republicans for the Democrat abuse and squander. Democrats and only Democrats are to blame. Just look at all of the corruption from their cultural appointments. The pattern is very clear. That's from Dave DeBomb, Retruth by Trump on November 20th. That was from November 20th, Retruth today. Retruth not today, Retruth recently. Yeah, maybe today. Anyway. So this is the post that you were talking about, Fury. A very sad thing happened last night in Hollywood. Rob Reiner, a tortured so this is where he could have probably avoided saying this stuff. He definitely did not take the high road. As it could be part of the, two witnesses though, fire from their mouth, but I get what you're saying. Rob Reiner, a tortured and struggling, but once very talented movie director and comedy star, has passed away, together with his wife, Michele, reportedly due to the anger he caused others through his massive, unyielding, and incurable affliction with a mind-crippling disease known as Derangement Syndrome, sometimes referred to as TDS. Definitely could have been worded better. Probably what he did not communicate in here is that they were murdered. I believe they had their throats slit and they were stabbed. And the current suspect is their son, who, as I understand it, has struggled with homelessness and drug addiction and was coming out of that and recovering and visiting with them. It has been implied that there was probably a fight, and that's what caused him to escalate to where he hurt them. So Trump he might know more than what he's saying in here, but this is worded very bizarre. I get what you're saying. Yeah. Crippling disease known as Trump Derangement Syndrome, sometimes referred to as TDS. He was known to have driven people crazy by his raging obsession of Donald J. Trump, which I have friends who are like this now. I completely understand. I just mute them when I get tired of listening to them or arguing with them, or I just don't go visit them when I'm not feeling like I can handle the craziness. Yeah. With his obvious paranoia reaching new heights as the Trump administration surpassed all goals and expectations of greatness, and with the golden age of America upon us. Perhaps like never before, may Rob and Michele rest in peace. It's weird. Hear weird noises outside. Interesting show today, huh? Between the bugs trying to attack me and weird noises outside. Sounds like somebody's like digging a hole. Hang on a minute. Let me check. No messages. How's the new streaming view? I can see the horizontal view comes up by default now. That's good. So what it should do, this new option, is when you go into shorts, we should be able to find me streaming in shorts. Oh, I don't know how to find it. I haven't checked my email yet, City. I probably did. I only check my email probably 2 to 3 times a week for the Two Witnesses Live, just busy with other things. And I don't really get a lot of email there. All right, moving on. yet. So agreed. Trump could have handled this a lot better. Oh, they are digging a hole out there. They're literally digging a hole outside. Weird. Guess there's a story there. All right. Anyway, back to Trump. Very sad thing happened. Yeah. Yeah. He'll be missed. I mean, even though he was crazy and suffering from TDS, there's no doubt about that. He was very vocal about it. It is still very sad. All right. Was there anything else you wanted me to cover about that, Fury? About Trump and how he responded to Rob Reiner? Definitely could have handled that a lot better. Scott Jennings has just written a powerful new book, A Revolution of Common Sense, How Donald Trump Stormed Washington and Fought for Western Civilization with his distinctive wisdom, courage, and common sense, which has made him a formidable force on CNN. Scott reveals the heart and soul of MAGA. Our movement has joined Republicans, Democrats, Independents, and Patriots who had never voted before but share the same love of God and country. Out tomorrow. Get your copy today. Cool. And the last post from Donald Trump. New release. Get your copy of Scott Jennings' great book today. There you go. Alrighty, well, we are all caught up on comments, so we will just jump over to Elon Musk, who posted a little bit more than Donald Trump. Yeah, it was disappointing. Who posted a little bit more than Donald Trump, so we're going to go through these pretty quick. I'm going to just skip over any Starlink, full self-driving, or Grok posts, just so that we don't waste time on them. And here we are. We're going to start with one. So this is where we left off, I think, on Friday. That is a Grok post. So here we go. There are only two genders, male and female. So this is a repost from Doge Designer on Friday. Elon Musk reposted that. Very true. It's nice to see that people are, it's interesting. I think it was it Joe Rogan? I think it was Joe Rogan who pointed out when he was interviewing Elon Musk, how when Elon Musk had purchased Twitter, that the transgender movement took a massive nosedive, and the people who were arguing about male and female and were wanting sex changes and stuff like that. I almost wonder if that wasn't a targeted psyop. Because I listened to this guy Chase Hughes, who says some very interesting. He was a CIA brainwashing expert, and he teaches about these psyops and how easy they are, even if they're not done by a country, just the way they happen. If they're not done by a bad actor, but I almost wonder if there wasn't somebody behind that whole transgender movement, because the way that it just dropped off as soon as Elon bought Twitter. Yeah. All right. Starlink. Birth rates. Breaking. Taiwan's falling birth rate approaches record low. Country's population declined for the 23rd straight month in November, with almost twice as many deaths as births. It now ranks among the world's lowest in fertility. So this is something Elon Musk points out quite regularly. Population collapse continues to accelerate. There's a big arguments over gender dysphoria on X today. Okay. This PhD tried to chime in on Elon's post about women having a womb. I bet you that's pretty good. He obviously failed biology. Yeah. Nobody should feel guilty for their race. We are individuals first. Yeah, 100%. Let's see. America encouraged Europe to adopt the tenets of blank slate liberalism, and within just 2 generations, multiple European countries faced the serious demographic possibility that they would become majority non-European. Really interesting article by Christopher Caldwell. I think we may have read that on Friday. Yeah, the Overton window opens wider. All right, where did we leave off? A high school student in Atlanta was stabbed in the face/head by a black student today, according to classmates. The white student is autistic. After the stabbing, the black attacker tries to rush the white student again, screaming. So this is occurring again? Student injured in apparent stabbing in North Atlanta. Terrible. Isn't that what the guy on the bus said when he stabbed Arena? I think he said that same thing. South Africa now has more anti-white laws than apartheid had anti-black laws. I remember that from Friday. This is deeply wrong. The goal should be no race-based laws. Agreed. That's Starlink. I don't need to cover that. Don't need to cover Grokpedia. Spent a few hours with Elon at his home recently. Several of his kids were there. They were thrilled to see him and rushed to him when he arrived. There were kids' stuff everywhere. Toys, tiny chairs, a tiny table. It was clearly the kids' world. Elon was just in it. One of his daughters was drawing. When asked what she was grateful for this Thanksgiving, one of the things she exclaimed was Daddy. Aw. We've gotten to a place in politics where seemingly nothing is off limits. Politicians will use anything to score points, including the relationship between a parent and his child. There are certain things that should never be used for political gain. This is one of them. This comment by Gavin Newsom's press office crossed the line. It would benefit everyone to see him correct it. Oh, he said, sorry your daughter hates you, Elon. Yeah. Shame on you, Gavin. This is the new SpaceX ISS docking station simulation game added in Tesla's 2025 holiday update. Ooh, this is interesting. I want to see this. Cool. Docking station simulation. So I'm reading here. Anna, you still on Donald and Elon as the two witnesses? They don't even talk about, oh man, I wish I had made those sound bites for you. They actually talk about God a lot. Obviously, you're not listening. So you say they don't even talk about God to help anyone with faith, truth, or love. The two witnesses will be telling everyone Jesus is coming and what is true. I don't know what you're basing that on. There's very little said about the two witnesses. It doesn't say. It says that they'll be prophesying for 1,260 days. And one thing is true about Donald Trump and Elon Musk is they piss people off because they tell the truth. So prophecy is telling the truth. It's also telling the future, but it's not exclusive to telling the future. But yeah, as long as Donald Trump and Elon Musk continue to provide content, that's what this show is here for. It's to cover what it is that they're saying, because by all accounts, they seem to be the two witnesses. So until I have evidence to the contrary, we're still here covering Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And yeah, stick around. I mean, you should listen just going through these posts. Like, there's so much information that they are covering and confronting and revealing and insights into their lives that it's worth your time to pay attention to them, because they're letting us know what's going on in the world. They're letting us know the atrocities that have occurred, what it is that they're doing to fix it. And along the way, we're going through the scripture and learning more about the timeline. I mean, like, We've had a lot of aha moments on this channel in regards to the beasts, the first and second beasts, the little horn, the timeline, the seals, what to expect in 2026. There's, lots of stuff. So, yeah. I get what you're saying. I had assumptions too about the two witnesses. I had hoped that it would be Moses and Elijah, and that we would be able to ask them questions. Like, I don't know what I was thinking. Like, maybe they weren't dead, or that they would be resurrected, and that they would literally kill people with fire who tried to hurt them. But clearly, that was a figure of speech intended to give us a mental image of the type of people that they would be, which I would think that I think now, after covering Donald Trump and Elon Musk, that there's definitely a lot of biblical characters that they mirror. When you look at the lives of Moses and Elijah, they're not like your average church pastor. They're not preachers. They're not up on stage preaching, and they're not really up on stage teaching. Moses, he dealt with a lot of hard stuff. He his life was a miracle. The fact that he made it through the culling of the male Israel children, the male Hebrew children being slaughtered, being raised in Pharaoh's house, and then being raised up to lead the children of Israel out of bondage, and dealing with a stiff-necked, stubborn people and a stiff-necked, stubborn Pharaoh, and still leading. When you look, he killed a man. Moses killed a guy. Can you imagine if Donald Trump had killed a guy, what kind of coverage he would get? That would be all over the news. So, yeah, that's the thing about watching is if you truly are watching and you really want to see God work, you're going to reevaluate the things that you assumed, the things that you are expecting, because your expectations may not match reality. And I think that's true of a lot of things. That's even true with when you're buying a new car. You have these certain dreams and expectations, and you imagine just the wondrous things that you're going to do. I'm thinking of the first car when I had never had a car and I got my first car. I thought I was going to be able to fly to the moon, but then, you get it and you get into the everyday, daily grind with driving a car, and it's just, okay, I get places faster. Expectation and reality, when they finally meet, don't always, live up to what it is that you anticipated. So, yeah. Let's keep going on here. See, this is Saturday, I think. He reposted this. Better than black. What is? Oh, this is a Starlink post. What's this? Phidias for president of the EU. Okay.
I want the leader of the European Union, which is now Ursula von der Leyen, to be democratically elected, because now is not elected. She comes inside the European Parliament and we say yes or no, but I think it's more of a show than actually vote, because she makes deals with all the political parties from before to vote for her. So it's not democratic at all what is happening to choose the leader of the European Union. So we need to change this. I want
the EU is definitely playing a big role in the end times. One of the things I'm trying to figure out is, what exactly is, the beasts from Revelation 13, we have some clues. We actually have a lot of data to consider, but we don't have solid answers. It's almost as though we have little pieces of the puzzle. So a couple of the new revelations I think that we've learned on the show is the first beast from the sea is defined in Revelation 17 from the sea as from the people, nations, and tongues, which indicates that a beast is typically a government or a kingdom. We learned that from Daniel 7, where the angel defines what a beast represents. And in Daniel, it tells us about the different types of beasts. So the beast from the sea, because of the description, seems to be a hybrid of the beasts that were described in Daniel 7. And the fact that it's from the sea implies that it's probably a democratic government of some kind, meaning that people are voted into power. And the 7 heads, the 10 horns, and the 10 crowns, the 7 heads seem to be nations like the United States. And the reason I say that is because Donald Trump, because of the Biden administration, and because of the way Donald Trump is talking about the Biden administration, where he says that the United States was dead and is now thriving again, that language fits with the head wound from the beast. It was wounded, the head was wounded to death by the sword, and it just so happens that we have data that implies that seal number 2 was the Biden administration, and the sword that he was given was the vaccine to use as a weapon on the entire world, and use that he did. More evidence today is coming out that that was a weapon. There was just a big, what show was that? Was it Glenn Beck or something? Or Joe Rogan? One of the big podcasters had someone on the show where they were talking about how the morticians are now speaking up more and more about how they're pulling out these white stringy things from people who got the vaccine. It's very much turning out to as though it might have been used as a weapon. So, but it's interesting that Donald Trump continually says that the America was almost dead, that it was wounded. I don't think he's used the word wounded, but he talks about America being dead and almost dying, and that now we're doing great, which is what the Revelation 13 says about about that head wounds. So, like I said, we have these little pieces of the puzzle, and we're still trying to figure out, okay, who are the other 6 heads? If one of the heads is the United States, then the horns would probably be the president and vice president, and the crowns would probably be the power of the office, things like that. So we have these little pieces of the puzzle, but what's the whole picture? And the second beast from the sea, it gets its power in the presence of the first beast, which implies that it exists simultaneously with the first beast. I know I was reading into that it was a transition, that you had the first beast from the sea and that it was replaced by the beast from the land. And I was thinking of that because of this narrative, which is I think I've disproven the validity of it. This narrative of the end time Antichrist, who was going to be a one world leader, a one world ruler. Well, there's no validity to that narrative. But what it seems like is that the second beast from the land is very likely Rome, because Revelation 17 defines it as the beast on the 7 hills, the 7 heads. So all of this stuff. So we're in this place where we're trying to piece together what the full picture of what exactly is prophesied about in Revelation 13, or written about. Let's see. Ha, got him. Won't be eating you today, dear fly. Let's see. Not your ideal, loving, warm, fuddy-duddy preachers. Moses spoke the word, and the earth opened up and swallowed 2 whole families, 3 whole generations of them. Exactly. Like men of God and the thing about prophets is they tend to either establish people or divide people, meaning they're probably going to piss off 50% of the people who hear them, which is very true about Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Let's see, all because of a couple of men and their families' sin. Let's see, Watchful, your thoughts on splitting of Mount Olives, east to west, signaling the return of Jesus. His feet touch and it splits. The east gates is showing stress. Yeah, my understanding is they found a fault line. I actually have a video linked somewhere. I might try to find it. And then we can talk about it. Let's see, think about that when you think about faith, truth, and love. Yeah. Yep. Let's see, the gate is blocked and sealed to prevent the prophesied arrival and faces the Mount of Olives, which across the valley from it. Yeah, the gate is blocked. They tried to seal it up real good, but the splitting is towards the east gates. Let me find that video for you. Just give me a minute. Neuralink, suspicious observers. I have so many notes saved for things that I'd like to show on the show. It takes me a while to go through them. Okay, so it's not in that notebook. Maybe it's under Watchful's notebook. Let's see, suitable helpmate, quantum spirits, Elijah. Let's see, where is that? Quantum reality. It might be easier for me just to search for this. Fire from his mouth. Who knows how long ago it was that I saw this to bring it up. Let me look in one more notebook. Google. Nope. All right, let's do a search on YouTube. Let's see, what are these? No one is prepared. That's the scientists. Let's see. Does it Mount Olives fault line? Debunking a Mount of Olives myth. This was it.
Hello, and welcome back to Israel with Aline. In the past few weeks, we've seen news circulating on the internet saying that the Mount of Olives is cracking, that it is opening up. But is this really true? Today we came to the Mount of Olives to see with our own eyes what is really happening in this place. And what is the connection between these phenomena and the fulfillment of biblical prophecies and the return of Jesus? We will also find out what scientists have to say about these future phenomena. So if you are ready, let's get started. Let's start by understanding what the Bible teaches us about the opening of the Mount of Olives. There is a very important prophecy in Zechariah 14 which says that the Mount of Olives will split, and we're going to hear it now. Behold, the day of the Lord is coming. On that day his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives, which is in front of Jerusalem to the east. The Mount of Olives will be split in two from east to west, forming a great valley. Half of the mountain will move to the north, and the other half to the south. You will flee through my valley between the mountains, because this valley will reach as far as Azal. Yes, You will flee just as you fled from the earthquake in the days of Uzzias, king of Judah. Then the Lord my God will come, and all the saints will come with him. On that day there will be no light but cold and frost, but it will be a unique day, a day known to the Lord. There will be no separation between day and night, for even after night falls, it will still be bright as day. This will happen both in summer and in winter. The Lord will be king over all the earth. On that day, there will be only one Lord and only one name, as we have heard. As we have heard, the prophecy says that instead this is simply the poor maintenance that was done here on the Mount of Olives, especially in these last few years when we had the pandemic and the war in Israel. So there isn't any deep crack that's causing this on the surface. Instead, this is just poor asphalt maintenance. However, this is not the end of Zechariah's prophecy, quite the opposite. What experts have discovered here in recent decades is truly surprising. And we're going to go down and see the science behind the great opening of the Mount of Olives. The main theory that talks about the opening of the Mount of Olives says that this will happen through a great earthquake.
Sorry, I just realized I was muted just there. This is a translated channel. She's actually speaking in Hebrew, and it's translated in English. That's why the words don't line up.
And not an opening over time through small cracks. It is believed that this will really happen in a sudden and violent way through a great geological phenomenon. And what do scientists have to say about this theory? Scientists in the 1980s conducted soil analyses here, and the result is surprising. The Great Mount of Olives, which rises up here on this side, what type of rock is this entire Great Mount made of? Chalk. Imagine this gigantic mount entirely made of chalk. That means the Mount of Olives is made up of weak and unstable rocks. Chalk is a very soft rock, easily eroded, and it loses much of its strength when it's wet. And the mount is made up of 2 layers of chalk. The lower layer is called kaakule, which is a relatively hard and more resistant chalk. And the upper layer is called menuha, and it is made up of a very soft chalk, and it makes up most of the hill. And between these 2 layers, there is a very dangerous material, a chalk called marley, which is superplastic, very fragile and weak. In fact, it becomes 4 times weaker when it's wet. Its behavior is very similar to that of clay. And that's why the scientists concluded that the Mount of Olives is naturally unstable. And I'll leave, guys, all the research, the complete research in English from the scientists linked here in the description if you want to read it for yourselves. And it's really something amazing that this great mount rises more than 750 meters above sea level. It is made in such a fragile way. And what draws our attention even more is the contrast between the Mount of Olives and the old city of Jerusalem, which is right here in front of us. The city was built on the entire...
There you go. I think that gives you kind of an idea. It's entirely possible because the whole Mount of Olives is made of chalk. I thought in here that she had said that there was a fault line found, viral cracks. It might have been another video. Why a major earthquake could split
tectonic fault. Let's make it clear that it doesn't go through the middle of the Mount of Olives, but it passes very close by, and it has an east-west orientation, just as the prophecy said. And I want you to notice something else on this map. Look at its colors. The different colors represent the different degrees of stability of the soil and the slopes. And if we look at the Mount of Olives, all of it is marked in red. The areas in red represent maximum risk during seismic activities. So what is the reality about the opening of the Mount of Olives? Is it really cracking right now? And the answer is no. We don't have any geological indication here of the mountain breaking. Nothing that indicates the fulfillment of this prophecy at this moment. But we know the Bible and we know that this day will come. And yes, scientists have come to the conclusion that this is very plausible. Yes, a big earthquake can happen here, and the Mount of Olives is especially prone to earthquakes. And in the case that there is an earthquake, it could split, but not the...
Yeah, sorry about her voice. It's a translated channel. She's speaking in Hebrew. But I think we get the point. It's highly probable. So the important facts here are the mountain's made of chalk. There are fault lines, and it's susceptible to cracking, to where if under the right circumstances, it definitely would split the Mount of Olives. So there's very real evidence to indicate that the prophecy will come true. Based on everything we've seen, very likely. And I'll add something that they're probably not taking into consideration is the magnetic pole shift. In the event that the whole Earth shifts, it's probably going to agitate that fault line and very likely split the mountain. Just saying. All right, let's go back to the timeline. I did read the context of what you guys were talking about in regards to Moses and Elijah. I just don't think I read it out loud. Is that what you were referring to, Fury? You had mentioned I should go back and read the previous posts. Let me know if I missed something that I need to comment on. All right, Ted Cruz. If this is true, then Omar faces criminal liability under 3 different statutes. Federal marriage fraud 8 USC 132C. This federal law makes it a felony to knowingly enter into a marriage for the purpose of evading any provision of the immigration law. Penalties, a conviction, so state incest laws and tax fraud. I like Ted Cruz. So Elon reposted that. So basically, Elon is probably on her way out. It would be very interesting to see her denaturalized and deported. Let's see. So there will be a minor split like the Mount of Olives due to the Mount of Olives fault, but no fault will split the nation. The Mount of Olives fault runs east to west. Never forget. Oh, let's see.
Back in the 1980s, a small group of trans activists hatched a plot to take an absurd, ideological, overvalued belief that being transgender is innate, natural, and healthy, and force all of society to live in a fictional world built upon it. Given the sheer audacity of that plot, I find it hard to believe that there weren't voices of doubt, naysayers in the room who said it couldn't be done. But if such voices existed, they were ignored, and the activists pressed on until they succeeded in nothing less than reshaping reality itself. And they didn't just persuade people to politely look the other way. They rallied good, decent people to march in the streets, demanding that teenagers sacrifice their health, fertility, and sexual function in the name of this belief. They convinced governments to write laws based on a non-existent fictional concept. They enlisted well-meaning teachers to poison the minds of a generation with absurd lies. And they drove doctors to amputate healthy organs and call it medicine. If they could succeed in creating that false reality, then surely we can succeed in restoring truth. Because our cause is not built on lies, but on logic and reason, not on ideology, but on sound ethical principles, not on harm, but on healing. Back in the
Never forget how the medical scandal began. So this was reposted from October 8th.
1980s,
He just reposted
a small
it. He just reposted it. He's always hitting these trans issues. Definitely a topic he wants to have at the very forefront of people's minds. Very interesting. Leave the kids alone. No one is going after kids. Okay, then. Ban child transitioning. Leave the kids alone. That's funny. Leftists will need to understand there is no compromise on this issue. They will leave the kids alone, or the rest of the sane society will do everything in its power to crush their movement. That even one child was sacrificed to these woke Frankensteinian procedures is unbelievable. The trans nonsense needs to come to a full stop, especially when children are concerned. Agreed. See, this is absolutely child abuse.
What is being done is they are sending teenage girls into menopause, which has 100 side effects of its own. And they call this love. And we're supposed to be quiet about it. Because they've conflated gender identity with being gay. They put these letters together. 2S even for two-spirit, but 2S LGBTQIA+. All of these different letters representing different cohorts. And they pretend it's one big community. And they use this to silence people who dare to object to any of this. But this is child abuse. Again, based on this notion that there's a right way to be as a boy or a girl. Now, in history, this used to be called something called gender identity disorder. That term was coined in 1964 by a man named Robert Stoller, who was a professor of psychiatry at UCLA. He viewed this as a disorder. And this was almost all little boys that this used to affect. And they wanted these little boys to grow up and be more masculine. These were boys who were effeminate, who they should have just left alone. But instead they were deemed to have a disorder. And the man who coined the term gender identity, his advice was that these little boys shouldn't spend as much quality time with their mothers. You can look it up, because that might feminize them more. They should have more time with their fathers.
So this interesting life experience, I've had this exact situation happen. So when I was young, my father was not in the picture. My mother, I was raised primarily by my mother until I was about, I don't know, from about 8 years old to about 15, 16. So for a few years there, I lived primarily with my mother, and it did overly feminize me. I was just say I was effeminate, right? And when I was about 18, a couple years later, I was at a church gathering, and my new stepfather. So my mom had finally married, who I now consider my father. His friends had met me at a barbecue, and sensed that because I was overly effeminate, he thought I might be gay. So he went and talked to my leader, because remember, I was raised in a cult. So he went and talked to my leader to, basically make the accusation that he thought I was that he thought I was gay, because he got an effeminate sense from me. Thankfully, the leader he went to knew me very well, knew that I had a girlfriend, and knew that I wasn't gay. I was just overly sensitive because I was raised by my mother. I've since gotten over that. But this was a thing that actually had happened to me, to where someone had thought that because I was more on the effeminate side and less on the rough boy side of things, that he thought I had a demon or something like that. So similar situation to where he's talking here. I'm going to go back and rewind this because I can actually relate to this.
You can look it up because that might feminize them more. They should have more time with their fathers.
Yeah, and I needed more time with my father. You know, my mother and father had gotten a divorce when I think I was 7 or 8 years old. So there was a period of time where I lived primarily with my mother, and it overly feminized me. Now, she married a real man who beat the shit out of me and defeminized me and turned me into much more of a boy, desensitized me. Boys need to be with a man. You know, and it's helpful for boys to be around other boys because we are built different than women. I like the way Jordan Peterson says that boys need to wrestle with each other and beat the crap out of each other so that they can learn the limits of their strength and capabilities. Because men need to be able to hunt and defend themselves and their families. This is the way God designed us. He designed us to be stronger and less effeminate than women. And the way we learn our boundaries is with other boys, other men. And that's what boys, and that's what I needed. That's eventually I got that later in life, and no longer was considered effeminate. But yeah, no, I totally get what he's saying here. So this hits close to home.
Going back even earlier than this goes to the Weimar Republic, to pre-World War II era in Berlin, when a doctor, Magnus Hirschfeld is his name, he had ended up opening up this Institute for Sexual Science, and he was friends with another man named Harry Benjamin. And they performed the first ever surgeries trying to turn men into women, which of course is impossible. But they actually transplanted a uterus into a man at this clinic in Berlin. The doctor who performed that surgery, his name is Erwin Gorbant. He later was a member of the Luftwaffe, and he helped design freezing water experiments on Jews at the Dachau concentration camp. But Harry Benjamin was friends with this original researcher. And Harry Benjamin went on to form the Harry Benjamin Foundation, which today, it was renamed in the 90s. It's now what's known as the World Professional Association for Transgender Health. And this is just an activist body pushing ideology. Because the truth of the matter is we don't have gender identities. We have personalities. And you don't have to be like everyone else in your class. You don't have to be like the other boys. If you're a boy who's not rough and tumble, who doesn't want to play sports, and maybe you're more sensitive, that's okay. You're still a boy.
Yeah. And then, so Elon's response to this is it is absolutely child abuse. And I want to point out that this is absolutely prophecy. You may not see it that way because he doesn't attach a chapter and verse to this. He's not spreading doctrine or a particular belief. He's not talking about Jesus. But when you speak the truth, and you call out atrocities, you bring people to God's laws into obedience with the way that God designed creation, that is absolutely a form of prophecy. He's speaking the truth. So this is truth in a very turbulent time where transgenderism and even gay, LGBTQ plus issues are a hot topic. He's providing a defined line of truth versus error. So by calling, child abuse, this technically falls under prophecy, in my opinion. Here he says, so if you have a womb, you are a woman. Otherwise, you are not. Plain and simple. Doesn't take much. T, if you believe free speech is for you, but not for your political appointments, you're a liberal. If no contrary evidence could change your beliefs, you're a fundamentalist. If you believe the state should punish those with contrary views, you're a totalitarian. If you believe political opponents should be punished with violence or death, you're a terrorist. This is from J.K. Rowling. Elon Musk posted bullseye. Yeah. Let's see. So this is a repost from Katie Miller. People want a strong leader that knows what they want. They want a leader that fights for their country and protects their people. Europe is lost to mass migration and open borders. They have harsher penalties for speech than violent crime. Yeah, and that's to my point earlier about the two beasts. I'm trying to figure out where the EU fits in Revelation 13. Because it seems to be at the forefront of everything in the news today. Let's see. If you had to explain why the Roman Empire declined and fell, this sentence would just about sum it up. Nobody wants to die for a multicultural economic zone. How far do I have to go to read the sentence? NATO's rut says Europe must prepare for scale of war our grandparents endured. See, our grandparents fought for their own nations, their own culture, and their own people. Western politicians have now spent years calling our nations oppressive, our forefathers immoral, our common culture and identity fake. Nobody wants to die for a multicultural economic zone. Oh, I get it. If you had to explain why the Roman Empire declined and fell, this sentence would just about sum it up. I get it. Yep. All right. That took a while to get to. It's a new Grok Imagine. This is a meme. What's in there? IKEA. The maze. How the F do you get out of IKEA? Truth. UK is a prison island. Huh. UK. Let's see. Countries with the most arrests for online comments. United Kingdom. 12,183 plus. Yoicks, Scoob. The core question of transgender debate is it more important to cater to feelings is it more important to cater to the feelings of mentally ill men or to keep women and girls safe while affirming reality? And Elon responds, it is far more important to keep women and children safe than to pretend that some man's mental illness is our new reality. 100%. Let's see, the left could stop the rise of the far right by just being normal on migration, but they refuse to do it. Opinion, the facts are stark. Europe must open the door to migrants or face its own extinction. George Menbiot? The left could stop the rise of the far right by just being normal on migration, but they refuse to do it. Yeah. I don't fully understand this post. I'm assuming that he's agreeing with, is this saying that they should kick the migrants out? The facts are stark. Europe must open the door to migrants or face its own extinction. Isn't that what's causing the problem? The left could stop the rise of the far right by just being normal. Oh, the left could stop the rise of the far right, which is you and me, by just being normal on migration, but they refuse to do it. I don't really follow. I don't really get that one. That's a SpaceX. That's a Grok. Low birth rate. Break in Poland's fertility rate dropped sharply, hitting about 1.1 children per woman, among the lowest in Europe, and is expected to fall further to around 1.05. Civilization is disappearing. Collapse of population is accelerating. Yeah, and if the magnetic pole does shift, I imagine there's going to be a loss of life as a result of that shift. So not only are we failing to have more kids, God's wrath and the wrath of the Lamb is going to probably take out a bunch more.
I lost my son essentially.
So you guys were talking about this in the chat. So here's where Elon's talking about his transition of his son.
I lost my son, essentially. So, they call it dead naming for a reason.
Yeah,
All right, so the reason it's called dead naming is because your son is dead. So my son Xavier is dead. Killed by the woke mind virus.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what that would be like.
Yeah. So...
yeah, and there's lots of people in that situation now.
Right.
It's not pretty, and lots of demolished kids.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's a good reason to be the final straw. All right, so let's.
So I vowed to destroy the woke mind virus after that. So we're making some progress.
Join the club.
Yeah. I lost my son, essentially.
I consider Jordan Peterson to be one of the two witnesses too. He's just not in the news enough. He's just not as vocal. Donald Trump and Elon Musk have it on lockdown. They post every single day without skipping a beat. They've come close sometimes to where they'll only post like one thing, but it's usually because they're doing interviews and they're in the news media. But Jordan Peterson is another one of those truth tellers who's out there prophesying as well. A lot of people prophesying right now. False prophets too. Usually the false prophets are the ones who are religious, the ones who are trying to build a name for themselves. Is the way I see it. I mean, there's a lot of broad categories when it comes to false prophecy, but I think a lot of people, they're talking about things that they don't know, and most of them are just repeating what it is that they've heard. And it's not actually helping; it's actually hurting. And one good case in point is what we talked about earlier. Why are there not more people who are talking about the things that we've observed here? Why are we in the minority? Why do I have to explain what prophecy is? It's because church doesn't teach people about real men of God. They present a fiction of, they present a fantasy of, what real men of God who led God's people were like. Something happens in religion that seems to be pretty common, where once they have taught something stops them from correcting the teachings, even if they know they're wrong, which is very much a religious practice. And I think that's why you find that engineers, more often than not, tend to be truth tellers, because it's a standard practice as an engineer to iterate on feedback loops. So we'll try something and fail, and then learn from the failure and try it again. So engineers get very comfortable with failure, and that's something that doesn't happen in religion and in churches. They, instead of iterating on the feedback loop, they tend to focus on on making hiding the error, ignoring the error, and ignoring the feedback that would confront the error. And this is something that I found to be the case in the cult that I was raised with, is I was not allowed to question the doctrine. And that's something that's very common in cult-like groups, to where the leaders want to have a common belief, a common doctrine that everybody agrees with and everybody believes. And it is extremely hard to get them to realize when their doctrine is wrong. And I think that's one of the reasons, one of the big problems, one of the contributing factors to why Jesus is going to come like a thief to many people, because they're looking for certain things that are not going to happen. And Jesus is going to just show up, and they're going to be like, but wait, seal number 1 never opened up, or seal number 2 never opened up, or there was never any great famine. And Jesus is suddenly going to be here. It's because they can't change. They can't consume new information. They're too sealed to, what their pastor or their teacher, whom they love and respect, taught them. And you get a lot of false prophets who just want to repeat and echo those same falsities, those things that aren't true. That's why prophets tend to establish and divide, is because they will speak the truth in the face of that kind of thing. So I didn't realize that this is when Elon decided to destroy the woke mind virus after what had happened. I may have realized this. I did see the interview, but it slipped my mind. So Colin Wright here is saying, I also vow to destroy this wicked ideology. Yeah. All right, what's this? From the Daily Mail, the 40-person mob who attacked an 18-year-old to death in an explosion of Somalian gang violence in London, and the uncomfortable facts about a diaspora most tiptoe around. The mob who attacked... Oh, is this an article? I feel like I'm missing information here. 40-year-old person. I feel like we're missing information. So should this link to an article? Oh, yeah. There you go. I don't want to read that. We're already late on time. From Peter Sweden, multiculturalism is actually a paradox. If you bring all cultures into one country, you destroy the ethnic culture of that country, and you just lost a culture. This is globalism in a sense. True multiculturalism is for all countries to preserve their cultures individually. All right, I agree with that. Makes sense. From the New York Post, Elon retweeted this 2 days ago. Party's over in Paris. Fearful French cancel New York NYE concert on Champs Elysees as migrant violence grows. Okay. Pointing out violence in Europe. Let's see. Meet Brad. Is this a video?
You might know me as the third person in the world to receive a Neuralink brain implant, the first with ALS, and the first who's nonverbal. I type this speech using just my thoughts, straight from my brain to the computer. Neuralink is a brain-computer interface, a tiny implant that reads your brain's electrical signals and translates them into actions on a device, like moving a cursor or clicking. For us with ALS, where motor neurons fade but the brain's intent remains, this bridges the gap beautifully. I'll walk you through it because once you see it in action, you'll get why I'm so excited. First, the basics. Neuralink does not read my thoughts or deepest secrets. To be honest with you, I don't have a lot of secrets. The implant only reads my intentions to move my body, and it translates those into commands for my computer. To move the cursor, I just think about moving my left hand. And gaming? Oh man, they brought a Nintendo Switch to my house. I steer with my brain. Left and right, thoughts control the cart. I beat my son Lincoln once. Edison let me win. Abigail claims she's undefeated. But playing Mario Kart with my kids? ALS took that away. Neuralink gave it back.
Yeah, and that just goes to reiterate what I've said many times on this channel, that Neuralink is not the mark of the beast, has nothing to do with the mark of the beast. It doesn't work the way most people think it does. There's this idea that it's because they say it's a brain computer interface that has read write capability. People misinterpret that to think that it can write thoughts to your brain. It doesn't work like that. It's very kludgy and very basic. And like he said, it doesn't read his thoughts. It senses the electrical senses, the electrical pulses, to where when he thinks left, that it energizes the electrode for what he would normally use to move his arm. Likewise, right. So when he's writing out those words, he's literally moving a cursor to type them out. And I don't think that I don't think we'll ever, until we master quantum technology, which I think we're light years. I think we're a way off. It's going to take Jesus basically being here to explain how that kind of stuff works. But if left to ourselves, we're light years away. I'm of the opinion, and my opinions. Ever since I came to this, this is my new opinion. Ever since I thought about this, that our brains are quantum computers. I keep seeing more and more videos that reiterate that concept, like this one. This is a very interesting video. Not this one. This one, where two Jewish PhDs are talking about quantum mechanics, and he introduces a very interesting idea that it's not just simply quantum entanglement with a couple of particles, but it's the entirety of existence that is entangled at a quantum level, which is why it's very much like the butterfly effect, to where one small change has a chain reaction. Because, and I think because of that we're pretty far away from having a brain implant that can actually write thoughts into our head. I don't even know if it's possible, because there's science that implies that who we are, our consciousness, is not actually contained in our brain. That it's actually more of a proxy for our consciousness, for who we are. Let's listen to this here for a minute or so.
One particle will instantaneously affect another particle many, many miles away, even though information at least cannot travel this faster than the speed of light. And then you wrote again, oneness. So if you want to expound just a little on that, quantum entanglement's a funny thing, but it's literally going off what you just said.
Sure. Yeah, so it's really an incredible phenomenon that we see that the electrons really do seem to be one entity. To change something that instantaneously, it's not that we saw information and the other electron actually knew it, but Bell's experiment really shows that the information mamish came from this electron here and faster than the speed of light transferred to the other one. And so the implication of these electrons really being one, and not only that, but quantum entanglement has been shown in the last 5 years between two different kinds of particles. So meaning we understand now the whole world is quantum entangled. Every particle is quantum entangled with every other particle. And to truly express the universe, you need sort of a one-way function. And I think one thing we learn out of that, you're talking about to be mekabel ol malchus shamayim. So when we say Hashem is echad, so there's a lot of layers then in the Shema every morning and night when we say it. What does it mean Hashem is echad? So one is milvado, the whole world is one. Not just there aren't other gods, but everything in the world is one. And furthermore, my ratzon and Hashem's ratzon are one. There's nothing except for Hashem. So the true resonance, proper existence, is to put one's ratzon in line with that of Hashem, to be batal b'shishi, and I think that.
But in the entire being. But sorry, go on.
And the whole Metzias, right, even more. So that when we milk dropping in a pot of chicken soup, it's just a mushal even for us when we try to drop in the pot of the whole Metzias of all of Hashem. And that one is, I think, when you talk about I think smart, rational people, I think like you and me, the concept of being mekabel ol malchuso. So when we grow up our whole lives, everyone, says you're so smart and you're doing great in school, and it creates a certain.
All right. I forgot how hard this was to actually follow. So what he's basically saying is that they've actually done experiments, and they're really leaning towards that all of existence is quantum entangled, because they're able to do experiments where they can affect something over here. Where they can affect something over, a particle over here, and see the result of it over here. And there's a growing distance over which they can do that, and it happens faster than the speed of light, which implies that there is something tying everything together. Very interesting chat with those two guys. They really don't get into the interesting stuff until midway through, if you watch that. All right, let's get back to Elon. Yeah, anyway, my point in bringing that up is it's just it's really easy for people who don't look at the details on things to make these off the cuff statements that, Elon is evil and he's making the mark of the beast because of Neuralink. Well, no. Elon's not evil. We cover him every single day. We cover him 5 days a week, and we catch up on what it is that he says over the weekend. So we cover what he says every single day. And I have yet to see anything, any indication that Elon is evil, and any indication that Neuralink has anything to do with the mark of the beast. It doesn't have the capabilities that people are afraid of, thinking that, it's going to be forced on the whole civilization, on the entire population, and that it has any kind of capability to overtake your free will. It does not have that capability. Number one, they would have to put electrodes in your entire brain. And right now it only goes into a couple select centers in the brain, primarily motor control sensors. That's why the way that this guy with ALS was explaining it is it works by thinking left, thinking right, and in the same way that you would move your hand. There's no audio to this. Opinion: population collapse isn't coming, it's already here. And nobody is paying attention, except for Elon and the 250 million people who follow him. Poland's fertility rate just crashed. It's basically the same information Elon posted. Let's see. Laughing my ass off. Capitalism is corrupt because humans are greedy. A capitalist will never say, I've accumulated enough wealth, time to spend all the... Capitalism doesn't assume humans aren't greedy. It assumes they are and refuses to give them power over others. That's the point. Greed under capitalism is constrained by consent. You only get richer by offering something others voluntarily choose to pay for. If you stop providing value, the money stops. Greed under collectivism is unconstrained. It's backed by force. You get resources whether you create value or not, so long as you can moralize need or capture political power. Also, capitalism doesn't pit competition against cooperation. Competition is how we discover who can cooperate best. Every successful business is a massive act of cooperation with customers, workers, suppliers, and investors. It isn't just coerced cooperation, and the claim that capitalists never give back is empirically false. Private charity, philanthropy, and reinvestment in voluntary aid explode under capitalist systems and collapse under socialist ones. What you're really saying is this: you don't trust individuals to choose generosity, you trust the state to enforce it. That isn't moral. It's just replacing voluntary cooperation with compulsory obedience. Very well said. Yeah, that was a repost from Elon. Unspeakable depravity. Edis Renan, Membranio Diaz, a criminal illegal from Honduras who illegally entered our country 7 times, was convicted of raping and sodomizing a woman who has cerebral palsy and cognitive delays. He attacked her and dragged her into an apartment building's laundry room. He was sentenced 3 years ago and could be released from prison as soon as July 2028, but the U.S. District Judge Judith Levy refused to sentence him to 2 more years for immigration crimes and called this monster a future ambassador for living up to our immigration restrictions. This Obama-appointed judge went on to praise him for family devotion and willingness to perform work that is claimed Americans find undesirable. Truly wicked. Well, one thing I would say is, yes, while what he did was evil and was appalling and evil, I do believe that people can be rehabilitated. And I think that there's a right way of doing that and a wrong way of doing that. When foreigners invade our territory and violently rape defenseless women, these are war crimes. Yeah. Democrat judges give them aid, shelter, not because they are soft, but because they support the end game The forced humiliation, dismantlement, domination, and destruction of the West. Yeah, I guess when you frame it like that, that is something that we're dealing with. And being that we're in the end times, this is indicative of whether you're a wheat or a tare, I suppose. Kit is now real. Yep, you can talk to your car now. This is cute. This is super cute. Tesla Diner launches mini Cybertruck racetrack for kids, built circling the new Model Y for kids. Aww. It is super cute. Again, no sound. Understand the universe. Back when, yeah, that's an XII thing. Grok Imagine. Grok. This is about slavery, I think.
Elon Musk has once again shifted the Overton window of American culture when he tweeted out that slavery was standard practice throughout all of human history, and it was ended by white people. He had left the comment underneath the video I made on slavery, and this resulted in a lot of pushback because slavery is one of the 3 historical pillars that modern political power is built on. The others being the Civil War and World War II. And they don't like when you question the source of their power. So they don't want you to realize that 5 to 10 million people were enslaved by the Ottoman Empire. 4 to 10 million people were enslaved in the trans-Saharan slave trade. 9 to 17 million people were enslaved in the trans-Indian slave trade. 10 million people were enslaved in South America. That slavery as an institution had been around for all of human history, for thousands of years, and practiced by all people. But around 1776, the idea of individual liberty started to spread through the Western world like wildfire. And all of a sudden you had the US Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and people just take this stuff for granted these days. They think that it's always been like this. But in 1776, only one country in the world had a constitution, and only one country in the world had a Bill of Rights. And today, almost every country has one. And this is what makes America so exceptional. This is why America is a shining city on a hill, because the world followed America. And it wasn't long until people started pointing out the contradiction of slavery. And the United States of America would ban slavery in 7 states when the rest of the world had only banned it in 7 countries. In fact, in the original draft of the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson tried to get rid of slavery. He called it a cruel war against human nature itself. And as president in 1807, Thomas Jefferson ended the transatlantic slave trade. And Britain did the same thing that year. And in 1833, Britain abolished slavery. And Britain would spend the next 100 years pretty much demanding that all other countries abolish slavery. They used diplomacy, treaties, military force, whatever it took. And hundreds of thousands of Americans gave their lives to end slavery. And the United States stood side by side with Britain, demanding that countries all over the world abolish slavery. And that's why they finally gave it up in the Middle East. They finally gave it up in Africa. And in the end, it was the moral conviction of the European that led to the abolition of slavery all over the world, built upon the principles of America's founding fathers. And this is why I write books on how information is controlled, about our rights. And I teach courses on real history, because there is an insidious agenda to shame our children into submission. And the truth is that our children should be damn proud of where they come from and who they are. Out, my private homeschool community. And Cubs to Bears.
Seems like Elon keeps reposting this guy's videos, because I swear we've seen this like 3 times already. I will note that I believe what he's referring to is sanctioned slavery. There is still a very real slavery problem in the United States. I think America is probably, what was it from The Sound of Freedom, that I think they say the statistic that America is the largest consumer of the sex slave trade. So it's not that slavery has been completely abolished, but like the sanctioned slavery, to where like there's a market for you to go buy slaves in, is what was abolished. So I mean, I get the point. I get what he's saying, that even abolishing that kind of slavery had a massive impact on cultures and society. But I think it would be ignorant to imply or say that slavery as a whole doesn't exist when it's still a very real problem globally. SpaceX, more boosters landing, more Neuralink stuff. What happened to my audio? Did I mute the tab accidentally? No. Why do we not have audio on these anymore? It must just be the video. Neuralink's first patient in the UK, Paul, who is paralyzed by motor neuron disease, has received a brain implant. Just hours after surgery, he was able to control a computer with his thoughts and is now using it to play games and regain independence. Oh, so I guess probably doesn't have any audio. Just showing him moving a character around on the screen playing games. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess you're probably right, Fury, about countries that still sell and own slaves. Yeah. Imagine a scenario in which large numbers of white people start saying that they feel black, and that because of this feeling and their enjoyment of stereotypical black behavior, they are now not just black themselves, but the most marginalized and vulnerable type of black. Okay. Oh, those are big posts. I don't think we're going to read that whole post. It's too long. SpaceX, Grok to video. Cherry Blossom Reflections. China is all of the growth in global electricity per person. Yikes. The paradox at the heart of the universalist individualism is that it is a fairly rare mindset globally. It is parochial, specific to specific people, either high trust individual societies resolve this and develop an immune system, or they'll go extinct. Freedom, health, and wealth. Everything you love in this world is highly correlated with high trust individualism. Ignore the effects of low trust, clannish immigration at your own risk. Exactly. Okay. Yeah, Elon's been on this sun kick. The sun is enormous, free fusion reactor in the sky. It is super dumb to make tiny fusion reactors on Earth. Even if you burned 4 Jupiters, the sun would still round up to 100% of all power that will ever be produced in the solar system. Stop wasting money on puny little reactors unless actively acknowledging that they are just there for your pet science projects. I think he's referring to Donald Trump is fast tracking these nuclear power plants for the AI data centers. I think he's trying. I'm guessing, I could be wrong, but I'm thinking he's trying to imply that it would be better to spend that money on building data centers in outer space. And we've seen very strong arguments for this posted, in that there's a lot more electricity available. You don't have to deal with cooling issues. There's a laundry list of benefits to building in outer space. All right. It is objectively true that slavery existed in all societies for almost all of history and was ended globally by European-led movements between 1808 and 2007. Okay. See, same thing. Keeps showing up. Let's see. Exports are only 20% of China's GDP. The U.S. is 15% of that 3%. Okay. Picture of Mars. Let's see. Doge widget. Thomas Sowell on gun control. Why anyone would think that criminals who disobey other laws, including laws against murder, would obey gun control laws is a mystery. True. Very true. This is good. Empathy is a weapon.
There's a guy who posts on X who's great, Godsad, and he talks about basically suicidal empathy.
Mm-hmm.
Like if there's so much empathy that you actually suicide yourself.
Yeah.
So that we've got civilizational suicidal empathy going on. And it's like, I believe in empathy. Like, I think you should care about other people, but you need to have empathy for civilization as a whole and not commit to a civilizational suicide.
Also, don't let someone use your empathy against you so they can completely control your state and then do an insanely bad job of managing it and never get removed.
The fundamental weakness of Western civilization is empathy. The empathy exploit. They're exploiting a bug in Western civilization, which is the empathy response. I think empathy is good, but you need to think it through and not just be programmed like a robot.
Right. Understand when empathy has been actually used as a tool.
Yes. Like it's weaponized empathy is the issue.
Yep. That is true. Agree. Empathy has been weaponized to destroy Western civilization. 100%. Yeah. And it's by design, The restrainer, whatever that is, has been removed because we can see Satan moving into civilization, destroying it. Arguably separating the wheat from the tares. Oh, this is the lady who lost her life at Brown University. Will the media report that the victim of the Brown shooter was a young conservative Christian white woman who ran the only allowed young Republican group on campus and was part of a small group of only 20 openly conservative students at Brown? Will they mention that the police explicitly claimed it was likely a targeted attack to her family and that when he came in the room, he looked specifically for her before he fired? That's a tragedy. That's a tragedy. And here we go again. The public school system is designed to indoctrinate children into CRT, gender ideology, and climate biology.
Everyone worries about the university indoctrination. That happens up here. But it is the crooked foundation of the public school system that makes university indoctrination possible. Everything in school is filtered through the Marxist lens of oppressed versus oppressors. So schools introduce gender ideology, and anyone who's against it is framed as intolerant. They introduce critical race theory, and anyone who's against it is framed as racist. The school introduces feminism, and if you go against it, you're a misogynist or part of the patriarchy, and they introduce socialism, and anyone who's against that is privileged. Now, more often than not, in fact, most of the time, this isn't happening overtly, but it's subtly embedded into curriculum. So, for example, when they teach about slavery, and they do this in elementary school, they teach that the U.S. had slavery, that people were stolen from their homes, that there was abuse, mistreatment, and we all know this. Everyone agrees that slavery was a really bad thing and there shouldn't be slavery. But they don't teach that the United States had banned slavery in 7 states when the rest of the world had only banned it in 7 countries. So in 1776...
Okay, so apparently the other video that we watched was the other half of this video about slavery. All right. Let's see. From classical liberty, math is racist, climate change is racist, USA is racist. Man with 14 priors slashing a girl's neck, yelling, "Got that white girl?" Not racist. Elon Musk posting the concerned emoji. All right. I don't understand this. Which way Western woke? 7-year-olds can choose their gender. 18-year-olds couldn't understand their student loans. Okay. All right. Democrats incite their base to target conservatives with political violence. It's open season on conservatives now. Will any Democrat leaders address the violence epidemic on their side? So from J5 Killer, a DM from a non-anonymous source about Ella Cook. She was a leader in the only conservative group on campus, which had 15 members. 19 years old, from Birmingham, Alabama. Providence Police Department called the family late last night and informed them that they believed the attack was targeted. The girl was a conservative Christian and a leader in one of the only right-wing groups allowed on campus. They only had 20 members. It was her and her conservative and moderate friend group studying for exams. The killer entered with a plan, looked for her, and then shot her in the face. It's terrible. Yep. These are all grok things. Never forget, mercy to the wolf is cruelty to the sheep. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's that weaponized empathy. In Fury, you make a really good point that they mistake our kindness for weakness and they exploit it. It's also it's not just a bug in civilization, but also our religion. Yeah, and we have churches to thank for that. Both Christianity and Judaism are religions of peace, and arguably even Islam, from what I learned this weekend. The religions of peace, and evil, and Satan would take advantage of that to where there's it's almost an effeminate religion to where we need real men to like Donald Trump and Elon Musk to take a stand. That's what makes them stand out, and why I believe it's important that they don't represent any particular denomination or religion. But obviously they have been blessed and anointed by God. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in the positions that they're in. And they are examples of standing against evil. Never forget. The likelihood of legacy media discussing a murderer's race depends on the murderer's race. This is why the BLM martyrs like George Floyd get endless coverage, while cases like Irina Zarutska are forgotten. Black murder. So how deep does the media bury race of a murder in their articles? Very deep. Yeah, so this is a scale of depth there. Race mentioned in the first 1/100th, second. Yeah, race. Don't talk about race there. Starlink. Is there audio on this one? No audio. Let's see. Neuralink's first patient. So this is pretty much a second post on the same guy.
I'm actually quite a big fan of tunnels. Tunnels are so underappreciated.
Please elaborate.
So this is from Captain Eli. Did you know Elon Musk's first public mention of tunnels solving urban traffic was in January 26, 2016? Hong Kong interview around minute 9. Okay.
Well, the fundamental problem with cities is that we build cities in 3D.
Yeah.
I mean, you see you've got these tall buildings with lots of people on each floor, but then you've got roads which are 2D.
Yeah.
So that obviously just doesn't work. You're guaranteed to have gridlock. But you can go 3D if you have tunnels. And you can have many tunnels crisscrossing each other with maybe a few meters vertical distance between them, and completely get rid of traffic problems. And it's my understanding that actually Hong Kong is in the process of building some tunnels, and I was very pleased to hear that. But that really is the solution for solving traffic in major cities.
Yeah.
I'm actually.
Yeah, I love. This is a good comment here, Fury. Jesus was not a pacifist and did not urge his followers to a path of pacifism. And I would add to that, just read the book of Revelation and see what he does when he returns. We're not going to be talking about rehabilitation. There's just going to be slaughter. You know what I mean? It's a good point. let's see. Why you can't blame any culture in the world except Western culture. Doesn't that seem odd? Here are several notable quotes from Thomas Sowell criticizing multiculturalism and related concepts like diversity, often drawn from his books and columns, such as Intellectuals in Society. Ever wonder why? It's in gamings. I don't know. I feel like I'm missing context. All right. I think we're almost at the top here. We should probably have time to listen to this.
In schools, they're pressuring us to learn about Islam and learn about the people that are coming up. I don't want to learn about that. I want to learn about my culture, my beliefs, and I'm proud to be English.
Have they taught you about the Bill of Rights?
No.
Did you learn about the Battle of Agincourt?
No. In school, they were teaching us about Islam, about Prophet Muhammad, and all their ideologies. They barely covered Christianity at all.
Did they tell you about how he was a warlord who brutally murdered people?
They wouldn't say any of that. And when I tried to stand up and say that some of them things, I would get in trouble for it. Suspended from school because apparently I was being racist. I wasn't. I was just trying to,
You're questioning an ideology?
Yes, I was questioning the ideology, and in my opinion, it's not the right ideology.
2 words. Suicidal empathy. Let's let in a bunch of people into our country that have different ideological values than we do. They have a different culture. They have different beliefs. Let's let them into our country. Then on top of that, let's force our children to learn about their culture and act as if their culture has nothing wrong with it. This is a hard fact that many people don't like to hear. Not all cultures are created equal. They produce different outcomes, different results, and people live totally different lives based off of what cultures they live in. Or I should say they can live totally different lives based off what cultures they live in. Then when you let a bunch of people into your country who don't have the same culture as you or the same values, and then you demonize your own people or punish them and call them racist and possibly suspend them or jail them or do whatever for asking questions about that other culture or saying not nice things about that other culture or not liking that other culture, that is a problem. Because you set up a situation where those minorities in that culture is beyond reproach. They can't be critiqued, but you and your culture can always be critiqued. And then that starts you down the path of losing your culture. I mean, you can also lose your country because typically countries are built around culture. Like him possibly being suspended for questioning Islam and having doubts about Islam, to me, is scary. It's concerning. But a lot of what's happening in Britain is scary and concerning to me. But I think I saw this on X a day or two ago. And it was something like, until many countries or many people in the West realize that an actual rape or actual killing is worse than perceived racism or perceived Islamophobia or whatever, the West will have a problem. It was something along those lines, and I agree. We have so many people in the West that are worried about being perceived as racist or Islamophobic or, bigoted or whatever, that they allow policies to exist that get people killed or raped. That is a problem. We should be prioritizing real violence compared to your perceived violence. So anyway, that's all I got for now. Just a reminder.
It's a good point. The West needs to care more about real violence than perceived racism or Islamophobia. Agreed.
There's a guy who posts on X who's great, Godsad, and he talks about basically suicidal empathy.
Mm-hmm.
Like if there's so much empathy that you actually suicide yourself.
Yeah.
So that we've got civilizational suicidal empathy going on. And it's like, I believe in empathy. Like, I think you should care about other people, but you need to have empathy for civilization as a whole and not commit to a civilizational suicide.
Also, don't let someone use your empathy against you so they can completely control your state and then do an insanely bad job of managing it and never get removed.
We've already heard this once today. The golden mean is real. Rules are not objectively real, and empathy for enemies or even mildly hostile strangers is a weakness rather than a strength. If a boat full of people who will, on average, make your country worse for whatever reason is heading to your shores, you sink it or force it back home or tow it someplace else. You do not have to weep and accept it. So, there's that. Yeah. Muhammad was not a pacifist. He started out by murdering a city of Jewish men. He then forcibly took the women and the girls and slaves. He took over the city and renamed it Mecca. His entire idea of spreading his religion was through a concept called jihad and building a caliphate. Everyone was forcefully converted. Those who didn't convert but were allowed to exist had to pay a special tax. Why is Grok saying that Islam is compatible with Judaism? This was a very heavy tax just to exist. They could not worship publicly. They had to worship in secret. See, that sounds very much like the end times beast from the earth. There is a SF.gov program that spends $294,000 per person to give the homeless free alcohol. Oh my God. What? That can't be true. This is why you should vote no on any new tax and bonds. San Francisco government is already funded beyond any country's wildest dreams. It's just squanders it. Let's see. It just squanders it on graft like this. What? This can't be true. San Francisco slammed for $5 million a year program to give free alcohol to home. Okay, so they're averaging that out. But yeah, so they're not really. So basically that money is going somewhere else. It's not going to the homeless. It's not like they're really spending $294,000 per person on homelessness. See, it's true. I broke this story last year, and San Francisco still runs the managed alcohol program that serves less than 20 people per year. See, that's what it's saying. So it's basically fraud. This is a fraudulent program. Grok is misled. Yeah, I found that, and I need to go check on the Grok-a-media post on the Antichrist, but I have found that, and I even asked Grok about this weekend. So you have to remember that Grok is a search engine. It's not really artificial intelligence. And it's going to return the response that has the highest probability of being the answer that you're looking for. And it has the same problem with Antichrist. It tends to return the religious interpretation of Antichrist. And I had this conversation with Grok. How do I get you to stop returning the religious interpretation and only return what the scripture says about the Antichrist? And I had it actually write a profile for me so that I can have it respond the way that I needed it to respond. So I imagine that there's probably some propaganda that Grok is trained on, and that's why it's returning that response that Islam is compatible with Judaism. So I get what you're saying. And this is one of the big problems with artificial intelligence is how do you, especially in one that you're trying to train to be maximally truth-seeking, how do you get it to see through the propaganda? That's a problem. Tesla Diner, Grok.
I don't know if you saw that study that someone, like a researcher, tested the various AIs to see how does it weight.
Oops.
I don't know if you saw that study that someone, like a researcher, tested the various AIs to see how does it weight different people's lives, like somebody who's sort of white or Chinese or black or whatever, and different countries, and the only AI that actually weighed human lives equally was Grok, and the I believe ChatGPT weighed the calculation was like a white guy from Germany is 20 times less valuable than a black guy from Nigeria. So I'm like, that's a pretty big difference. Grok on that is consistent and weighs lives equally.
And that's clearly something that's been programmed into it.
Yes, like a lot of it is like if you don't actively push for the truth, and you simply train on all the bullshit that's on the internet, which is a lot of woke mind virus bullshit, the AI will regurgitate those same beliefs.
Yeah, and I think he may have answered our question about why is it regurgitating the bullshit on beliefs. Still might have a little bit of woke mind virus. It may be an unwinnable battle. How we were talking on Friday about where artificial intelligence can fit in Revelation, the book of Revelation, in that it could be the image and breath life of the beast, and that whoever the beast from the land is could use artificial intelligence to mirror the evil of that governing body. And it may just be that there's no good way to train artificial intelligence without the woke mind virus getting infesting it. If anybody's going to do it, it's going to be Elon Musk. He's trying to make a artificial intelligence that is maximally truth-seeking and doesn't have the woke mind virus. But it's an uphill battle, that's for sure. See, after all these years of waiting, the tech is finally here. Self-driving car. Okay, this is more about full self-driving. I think this is just Jensen.
The only regret I have about XAI, we're an investor already. Mm-hmm. The only regret I have is I didn't give him more money. Mm-hmm. Almost everything that Elon's part of, you really want to be part of as well. And he gave us the opportunity to invest in XAI. I'm just delighted. The only.
Yep. Grok Imagine. What's this?
Yes, if civilization continues, which it probably will, then AI in space is inevitable. I always have to preface that. We shouldn't take civilization for granted. We need to make sure to take care to ensure that civilization has an upward arc. I mean, any student of history knows that civilization does not always have an upward arc, and in fact, civilizations have life cycles. So hopefully we are in a strong upward arc. I think we are for now, but we don't want to take that for granted or be complacent. But the way to think of AI in space is that in order to achieve any meaningful percentage of a Kardashev 2 scale civilization, where you're using even a millionth of the sun's energy, you must have solar-powered AI satellites in deep space. So that once you realize, once you think in terms of a Kardashev 2 scale civilization, which is what percentage of the sun's energy are you turning into useful work, then it becomes obvious that space is overwhelmingly what matters. Overwhelmingly, the sun only receives roughly 1/2 billionth of the Earth only receives roughly 1/2 billionth of the sun's energy. So if you want to have something that is, say, 1 million times more energy than Earth could possibly produce, you must go into space. So this is where it's kind of handy to have a space company, I guess. Sell the book.
Easier to cool chips in space, too.
Yes.
Easier to cool chips in space. Yeah.
Yes, there's definitely no water in space, so you're going to have to do something that doesn't involve water.
Just hang out.
Well, you just got to radiate.
That's right.
So my estimate is that actually that the cost of electricity, the cost effectiveness of AI in space will be overwhelmingly better than AI on the ground. So long before you exhaust potential energy sources on Earth, long before, meaning I think even perhaps in the 4 or 5 year time frame, the lowest cost way to do AI compute will be with solar-powered AI satellites.
Okay, no need to listen to him talk more about that for the next 2 or 3 minutes. Let's see, but why does the legacy media, we already read this, but why does legacy media do this? Why is Western media so anti-white and so anti-Asian? Indeed. Here's how tiny Earth looks compared to the massive sun. It would take more than 1.3 million Earths to fill up the sun. One giant nuclear fusion reactor in space just waiting to be tapped into. That's what he's been talking about. Capturing the sun, the energy from the sun. Let's see. Take a photo with Grok. You can analyze anything. Okay. Grok Imagine is pretty awesome. Grok Imagine is pretty awesome. More Grok Imagine is pretty awesome. Or more Grok. Up we're at the top. El Salvador. Either the suicidal empathy of Western civilization ends or Western civilization will end. Please try to be empathetic and look the other way as your civilization is being raped and murdered into oblivion. Die kindly. All righty. Well, that's the end of what Elon has to say. Not as long as his usual weekends, but still pretty long nonetheless. Let's end out.
So we all thought.
Send out tonight with an update on 3i Atlas. A lot of things have been happening. It keeps changing color. This guy goes through and gives a good update on where we are with 3i Atlas.
Thought that by now we would know everything about 3i Atlas as it's getting closer and closer to us, but scientists' guesses still seem to be as good as ours because we just got some massive updates that make everything too weird again. First, new telescope data reveals the object is glowing green, despite previous observations showing the object is missing the molecules needed to be green, and despite getting farther and farther away from the sun. Also, the tail pointing toward the sun is still there, clear as day, which seems to destroy the explanation scientists have been using for decades. So in this video, I'll break down what is actually happening with 3i Atlas as it's getting to its closest point to Earth, but let's first start with the color. So the famous Gemini North telescope in Hawaii just captured new images of 3i Atlas, and the object is once again glowing green. Now the color in itself is not that weird. A lot of comets glow green when they get close to the sun, but as comets get farther away from the sun, they receive less solar energy. Less energy means less heating, and less heating means less ice turning into gas, which means the comet's color brightness gets weaker. This is one of the most predictable things in astronomy, but 3i Atlas seems to be doing the exact opposite. It passed closest to the sun almost 2 months ago. Since then, it has been moving farther and farther away from the sun. So the green glow should be fading, not getting stronger. Now, this is very weird, but I do have a theory for what's happening here. It's called thermal lag. Here's how this would work. When 3i Atlas passed closest to the sun, the surface got blasted with intense heat immediately, but that heat does not instantly penetrate deep into the interior. It takes time, days, weeks, maybe even months, depending on how thick and insulated the outer layers are. So even though the object is now physically farther from the sun and receiving less direct solar energy, the heat that's soaked into the interior during perihelion is still working its way through. Just like steak keeps slightly cooking inside after you take it off the grill, the outside might be cooling down, but the inside is still heating up. This delayed heating would be cracking open deeper ice layers that were frozen solid for billions of years, and those fresh interior layers would be loaded with carbon that is now sublimating into gas and creating the green glow we are seeing. So that's what I think is happening here, but here's another very weird thing about the color. To create the green glow, you need carbon molecules floating in the gas cloud around the comet. When sunlight hits these carbon molecules, they glow green.
I like Ray's
That is what creates the color we see. But a while back, multiple telescopes ran the most detailed observations ever done on an interstellar object, and both the University of Hawaii and the MDM Observatory found something pretty shocking. 3i Atlas had barely detectable carbon molecules. Scientists looked for the standard carbon signatures that show up in basically every active comet we have studied. One scientific paper placed 3i Atlas among the most carbon-depleted comets ever known. Finding a comet this depleted in carbon is kind of like finding ocean water with no salt. So for quite a while, scientists were completely stumped, trying to figure out why an interstellar comet would be missing almost all its carbon. But now, after 3i Atlas passed closest to the sun on October 30th, the carbon molecules are suddenly appearing. The green glow is visible in the new images. Carbon is there. So where did the carbon come from? Well, I think the reason for this is something called cosmic ray processing, or cosmic rays. Let me explain what cosmic rays actually are, because despite the name, they are not rays at all. They are tiny particles, mostly protons flying through space at 99.9% the speed of light. These things are getting shot out by supernova explosions all across the galaxy. And if an object is floating alone in interstellar space with no planet.
All right. Well, that's the big news. Is it's turning green again. It was turning yellow for a short period of time. I think it was Stefan Burns reported that, and then now it's turning green again. This guy doesn't think that it's aliens, which may not be. Could just be a strange interstellar object. I was disappointed that nobody commented on if Jesus showed up. I know it's a ridiculous question, but if Jesus showed up in a ship and with a loudspeaker told you that he was here, and you had a choice to get on a ship, if you would get on. It's not exactly how people imagine the rapture to happen, but my point is, what if it was a Noah's Ark kind of a situation where Jesus showed up in a large craft and gave people who believed the opportunity to board the craft in order to be saved from the magnetic pole shift or seal number 7, the trumpet bowls and judgments. Would you get on? I don't know if it's going to be like that. It's just a silly what if scenario. If the scripture is if what's written about the rapture is correct, we'll be caught up together in the air. It'll be more like teleported, like in Star Trek. But it's an interesting thought experiment to where the scripture does say he shows up in the clouds. As far as the logistics on what that will be like, it seems like it would be a craft. I mean, I can't imagine that a talking head would go over well. Unless he's able to just beam information straight into your head. Hey, I'm here. Let's go. Could be like that. You'd get on. I'd get on too. Just knowing what I know, it's interesting. I find it interesting that people are warning about fake alien invasions. So maybe a lot of crafts show up. Maybe there's a lot of spaceships that show up. They show up in the clouds, providing the opportunity to leave the Earth before the next disaster cycle. I don't know, maybe. But that's primarily the update. I thought I would use this guy just as to switch it up. I don't think Ray actually did a video today. His last one was a day
We'll
ago.
be there fairly high. We'll be there.
This is Stefan Burns talking about it being yellow and then turning green again.
Will be
something.
So the information I'm going to
go.
All right. So I'm a novice, right? But as you said, it got close.
Everybody's talking.
Everybody's
talking about it turning green.
I mean, look at this. It says a traveler from distant stars escaped from a dying world looking for a way to extend his own life.
Oh, did we watch this? For some reason, I was thinking we watched this on the show. I may have just watched this. We can watch a little bit of this.
I mean, look at this. It says a traveler from distant stars escaped from a dying world looking for a way to extend his own life.
So I've been taking pictures of Comet 3 Atlas, and I was sharing the data with you all, and I missed an unprecedented event that is somehow tied to this 3 Atlas. It is a huge gamma ray burst which happened back in July. There is a number to it. It is called GRB, gamma ray burst, year 2025, July 07. On the second it happened, 02. And on the same day we saw 2 of them, so there is a B number to it. So it's GRB 250702B. That's the name of, or the number of that gamma ray burst. Why it is so important and what is it? Well, before we get to know the details of this, we do need to know what they are. I'm going to explain those in more details later, But for now, let's assume it is a huge explosion in the sky and it is sending the gamma rays towards Earth. Okay, it happens to be that we could record it if those bursts are going to happen, are happening in the sky. Now, what we recorded that day was unusual and never happened before. Typically, the GRBs come in 2 seconds, 3 seconds, stuff like that. It's in seconds. And
I feel like we covered this on Friday. He said this video shows that it's from just a day ago, premiered on December 14th. I feel like we covered this though. Am I losing my mind? I remembered him saying that, this is the second largest, that there's been another largest burst. Was it from another? Maybe it was from like Stephon Burns. But I feel like we've covered this gamma ray burst.
I've been taking pictures of Comet 3. So the information I'm going to share with you today is probably worth listening with the background noise that you may be hearing. So I took a lot of pictures.
To learn more about some of these unique properties of GRB 250702B, because the fact that it's also an oddball is very...
All right, so this is not new information.
Learn more about...
Stephon already got it. All right, well, that's good because we're at the 3-hour mark. We went an hour longer. Not unusual for Mondays. Mondays tend to go a little bit longer because we got to catch up from all the weekend. Thankfully, the weekend posts were not crazy today like they have been in the past. We were able to actually get through all of them. But thank you so much for joining me for today's Torment report. This one, pretty good. I think we had a lot of good conversation, a lot of good topics covered tonight. Let's see, I'm going to put this over here. Do you have anything you guys any questions before we go? We're at the 3-hour mark, so maybe 1 or 2 questions if anybody wanted to talk about anything. Islam. So I'm disappointed that Grok is leading me in the wrong direction. So Amy has a lot of information on the Rare Foundation site. So I guess I have some homework to go learn about Islam so that I could speak correctly and not misspeak on that subject. So tonight I'm going to try and finish editing that video I've been working on so that I can try and get it published by tomorrow. Yeah. Anyway, that's all I got. Everybody, doesn't look like we have any questions for tonight. I'm going to end it there. Thank you so much for joining me. If you like the video, make sure you hit that thumbs up. Subscribe to get notifications. Comment if you have any questions or comments. And plan on joining us again tomorrow. Seems like the 4:30 seems to be a good time. So tomorrow at 4:30 Pacific Standard Time, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. Thanks again for joining me. Have a good night. Shalom, shalom. God bless you.